I'm again. Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Happy midweek. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Daily S&M with Rory Sauter and Greg Merck. It is great to be back with all of you. I hope you all are doing very well. It's been quite the week in the media. Big show tonight. A lot to address, a lot to establish. Headline after headline. What a time to be alive. Merck, I want to start with economic news. A lot going on. Give us the rundown on that.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
Big news so far this week in that.
Well, I was, to start off is exactly what I wanted to start off with, even in spite of the Iowa caucuses that we saw. But, today, for those that are watching the markets, they saw a huge, not a huge, but a significant sell-off. And the reason behind it is, what you and I have been talking about. It's a funny thing that the news tends to be a week, a month, and sometimes multiple months, maybe even a year behind the things that we address and the things that we foresee, way behind what we talk about. Now, we had talked about extensively last week and many weeks before about how the Federal Reserve is caught between a rock and a hard spot. They can't raise interest rates. Even though that's what they need to do to fight inflation, because inflation is not over. We saw it last month. It's ticking up. They can't lower rates because that will create more inflation. But if they don't lower rates, they're going to crash the markets. If they raise, are going to crash the banks and investors. And if they raise the rates, they're going to crash the stock market. There's no easy way out. Well, they've been pricing in six rate cuts next year, which I find just kind of ridiculously absurd. But because based on what? Just wishful thinking. The stock market and Wall Street, they want those lower rates. They want to accelerate their profits, their low debt, the cost of debt for them, the cost of capital. They want to lower that. All good for stocks. All good for Wall Street. Not good for Main Street because it will create inflation. But what we saw is recently a very strong, what they call strong job numbers or consumer spending rather, which is really not strong. We showed an uptick in the amount of credit, personal credit last month that we haven't seen maybe in history, the most in a month. So anyway, but they interpreted it as strong consumer, right? Misinterpreting it, of course. So now the narrative is maybe the Fed is not going to cut rates in March like they anticipated. So you saw a sell-off. You also saw a sell-off in gold because they think that higher interest rates, higher bond yields is bad for gold. But what eventually is going to happen is people are going to see that this has been a complete, utter, egregious mismanagement of our economy, not only from the Federal Reserve, but also from the federal government, which includes both parties. And I'm talking about the Republicans and the Democrats. They've completely mismanaged this economy for the last 20 years and beyond. But we are now, the chickens, as they say, are coming home to roost. We're eventually going to realize that the Federal Reserve has completely lost their grip. And they've lost their grip for a number of reasons. Number one, there is no sign of slowing down the government. I mean, look at these clowns in Washington. They're going to send another multi-trillion-dollar continuing resolution. They're talking about another almost $7 trillion budget. This is COVID budget, with trillions of dollars in stimulus. Why are we continuing to spend the kind of money that we spent in the midst of the pandemic where you needed all this money because we were going to implode? It's absolutely absurd. Inflation is not going to go anywhere. It's going to accelerate, and it's going to accelerate for a number of reasons. Lower the rates, raise the rates, leave the rates the same. It doesn't matter because the federal government is spending trillions of dollars more than they take in. That is inflationary. Also, increase in credit. Personal credit, corporate credit, it's all going through the roof. Inflation is not only here to stay, but we're going to see it accelerate. And we'll see what the Federal Reserve chooses. Will they choose to reelect Biden and lower interest rates because that's what's going to be needed? Or will they choose to say, hey, we really need to fight inflation, and it's going to cost the banks, it's going to cost investors all over the place, and it's going to cost the American consumer. So we'll see which side they pick. But I will say this, there's no right answer for them. And the old adage, we're damned if we do, damned if they don't. So no matter what they do, it spells doom and gloom for the American people and the American economy.
Well, the whole world right now is on fire economically.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. But you know what? When America sings, the world dances. And we're playing the music.
Usually, if America is doing poorly, then most of the world is in the same condition.
Yeah, somewhat.
For the most part.
Yeah, but we are the economic leader of the world, and there are a lot of things at play here. And yeah, maybe we're the cleanest dirty shirt in the laundry. But the fact of the matter is, American people don't really give a damn of how rough they have it. Look at back in, some years back, the austerity measures in Greece. Yeah, American people don't care. They don't care what's happening in Europe. It doesn't matter to us. And even doesn't matter in China, except when it spills over into the United States. So, we can continue to be the economic powerhouse in spite of the fact that the world could be, moving in the other direction. And, but we refuse to do that. We take, we take our lead from other countries. This 2% inflation thing, I don't even know. Best I can gauge is that came from a New Zealand study, 2%. Why 2% inflation? I mean, what's so good about that? Why not 1%? How about 0? How about prices never go up? Isn't that a good thing? So how do they arrive at it? So my point is who really knows what's running this thing? But I can tell you this, Washington, D.C., the city of harlots, continues to spend us into oblivion, and they're destroying this economy from the inside out, regardless of what the world's doing. These people in Washington, the prostitutes, are selling America down the drain.
Can you give any examples at the current moment of economies or countries that are striving and doing well and on top?
Well, you look at India. I mean,
I was just going to say, I would say a rare exception would be India, but other than that, because I study India quite a bit.
Look, the German economy would be doing great.
Numbers and what their GDP and just everything that they have going for them. I mean, they are, in the front seat right now. Other than that, though, I don't think any country.
Well, there are some small countries whose debt to GDP ratios are like minimal. I mean, look, if you could take a country like Switzerland, Switzerland, I get it. It's only a tiny, tiny country, but they're doing extremely well. Norway doing extremely well. These countries that have
in regards to countries that are in
countries that matter
in competition with the USA. I mean, I would say the only one out of that group that is doing, well at the moment is India. Fair?
Well, I mean, obviously China is not doing well.
Horrible.
Doing horrible.
And they're a competitor with India. They go at they're rivals on various things. Wouldn't you say it's fair?
Well, but see, this is what people don't want to grasp the reality of. Communism does not work. I mean, I don't care what you say. And I know China is kind of this, postmodern communism where there's some free market, there's some art, but there's really not, because the Chinese Communist Party, Xi Jinping, really ultimately controls everything. Communism, Marxism, it doesn't work. And you have India, which is a democracy, and same amount of people, roughly over 1 billion people. But because India is a free market, much freer than China per se, and government, India is working better. Eventually things start to unfold that are the ugly result of Marxism and communism. And that's what we're seeing in China. You can only manipulate your currency so long. You can only make make-believe cities, build make-believe cities, and pour hundreds and billions of tons of concrete around without being paid for. You can only do that so long. You can only create this fake economy for so long, and eventually the truth comes out. And we're seeing that in China right now. So, I mean, as far as the big economies in the world, no, none of them are doing well. But you know what? The American people, that doesn't mean we have to follow them and not do well, because they're all doing poorly for the same reason. When you allow your national debt to rise to the levels, I mean, look at Japan. I mean, they've got like a 200 plus, over 200% debt to GDP ratio. These are all terrible, terrible numbers. And in the United States, we're 120 north, maybe 125% debt to GDP, all very bad for economic prosperity. They say that over 90%, I think the general consensus among economists is that when your debt to GDP exceeds 90%, you stifle economic growth 30%. So we're well north of 90%, which means we are suppressing our economic growth minimum 30%. We have this great engine, this economic engine, but because of massive regulations, because of massive overspending and horrible fiscal policy and monetary policy that's monetizing it, we're struggling as a nation. And the reality is, it doesn't have to be this way. There are answers, there are solutions, starting with really going back to a pre-COVID budget and cutting this massive cutting in the federal government and allowing the free markets to set our bond rates and our yields and not manipulating them with this Federal Reserve and not doing this quantitative easing, all of it destructive on the American consumer because it's undermining the value of the US dollar. And we certainly need to secure this border because with 10 million illegal people coming into America, sucking off the United States government, this is an unsustainable path. We are already being anchored to the bottom of the ocean by massive entitlement programs like Social Security and Medicare. And we're exacerbating already huge problems in America with massive illegal immigration that are stripping us of our resources, putting enormous pressure on our social safety nets, our education system, our healthcare. None of it is sustainable and all devastating to the American economy.
No, absolutely. 100%. And speaking of economies, what's the situation with Saudi Arabia? How are they holding up?
Well, I mean, as far as the oil situation, or
just economically all around.
Well, I mean, these countries are in the Middle East. They all, I don't care how they talk about, climate and green and, these cities they want to build. They are on this map because of liquid gold. And, so they all have a vested interest in keeping oil prices high. So, I mean, ultimately, when the dust settles, the world realizes that certainly China, massive economies like China, they realize that the key to growing your economy resides in fossil fuels. I mean, fundamentally, the foundation of energy is in fossil fuels and nuclear for those that have it. But fossil fuels are here to stay. And as long as we're using them, countries in the Middle East, OPEC Plus, and all these nations are going to continue to be able to survive. Their entire economies are built around that. There are literally thousands and thousands of Kuwaitis who don't lift a finger at work because in Kuwait, they have revenue sharing with oil revenues. And, they might get $80,000, $90,000 a year just in oil sharing. This is the way they do it. So they don't work in these countries. It is a huge source of revenue for their people and certainly for their government. So, I don't see things changing for them. But the real problem is the global economy, it hinges on the success of the U.S. economy, notwithstanding the fact that a collapsing Chinese economy will really ripple around the world. But the global economy is really the crux of it resides in the United States economy. We're buying all that Chinese junk. We are a massive consumption economy. And oh, by the way, a strong, economically secure America funds the strongest military in the world, which makes the world a safer place. We disagree with the billions of dollars that we send to these countries, and it is a huge mistake, especially to Ukraine. But the fact of the matter is the world's security resides or rests in our economic prosperity because we're the nation that funds the military that goes around the world and keeps people safe. Natural disasters, when they happen, who is the first and the most with aid to these countries? It's the United States.
But
so
why is that though? Why?
Well,
have we ever gotten a clear answer? I don't think we have. I mean, we've never really gotten a straight explanation of why. Why don't other countries give as much as we give? Why are
I will say that America is the most benevolent nation in the world. We are just that kind of people.
Like, I mean, I understand there's lobbyists, there's special interest groups. I get that. There's money, there can be money involved. But it's also more than that.
Well, I think people in, these people, the people that make decisions, like take, for example, Christian people or, conservatives, they give more to charity than anybody, but Joe Biden gives nothing to charity. As a matter of fact, I think some years ago, he was making hundreds of thousands of dollars, not to mention all of his illegal activity. He gave $3,000 to charity. $3,000. I mean, I know people that make, pennies in the dollar what he makes. They will give $3,000 in a month to charity. Godly Christian people are among the most benevolent givers.
What do you think Joe Biden's best year was? Let's just say it, with all the money he made illegally. What do you think?
In terms of charity?
No, just in terms of what he.
Oh.
You were talking about what he made.
Yeah.
And what he
man, who knows? Nobody could know that because he said.
Give it a guess with all the dirty money he made. Because we even talked about before, and I want to get back to your point, but we've talked about before how he's not as bright, he's not as sharp, he's not as intelligent as the other presidents in regards to making money, capitalizing, getting dirty, using all his resources. So what do you think?
Yeah, he's an idiot. Well, I will say since he was been vice president, but I would be surprised if he didn't make $10 million, and that's his 10% of the big guy. So I mean, he's got to at least have pulled $5 to $10 million out. But you know what? We're never going to know. We're never going to know because everything is shrouded in secrecy and offshore accounts and multiple companies and shell corporations. So we're never going to know. But clearly, this is a guy that says he was broke. He didn't have any money when he left office as vice president. Now he's got all this money and houses. But even an idiot, even a blind squirrel can find a nut. And this idiot, he's found some. And guess what? The guy he's a pimp. The only thing he's missing is the purple fedora and the fur coat. He pimped his son out. Make no mistake. This guy is like the most grotesque pimps of all. What kind of father pimps their child out? He pimped his son out to go around the world, make all these deals while he took his 10%. Really disgusting. This is a very vile and disgusting man. So he's made a ton of money, but just filthy, rotten, dirty money. It's kind of like criminals that rob banks. They never become uber rich because they're filthy, rotten thieves. They smash and grab and sell their crap on eBay. They make a good living as thieves, but they never become the Uber. They'll never be the Elon Musk, the Jeff Bezos, the Bill Gates. They'll never be those people because they're just too damn stupid. But they will live a good life. These thieves and bank robbers, they do pretty good with their illegal activity. But because they don't have the mind, they don't know what it takes to journey, to claw your way to the top. They'll never be one of them. They will just want to just desire to be like one of them. And, they'll steal and pillage their way to get as much as they can so they can hang out with them. But who knows how much he's made? But rest assured, hardly a penny of it came honestly.
Right. Speaking of this whole scenario with you were talking about Christianity and getting involved with other countries. Continue on with your point.
Well, yeah, because like America is this nation of benevolence. Because of our largesse, we want to give and we want to help other countries. The sad part about it is our foreign policy and our foreign aid has been hijacked by radical leftists, by people with very wrong motives. It's very simple foreign policy. What I say, template that you go, if it is in our nation's national security interests, if it's in our economic interest, and if it promotes American values, American ideals, then we should give. But it has to meet all three criteria. All three, or I'm sorry, you don't get the money. And so it's our national security interests, our economic security interests, and it promotes American values, American ideals. If it doesn't do that, then I'm sorry, you just don't get our money. And it's harsh, but what good is in America just throwing money out there if it's ultimately destroying our own country to where we're not going to even be able to help the good people that deserve it. So if we just help everybody indiscriminately with a zero litmus test, if it's going to lead to the demise of the big bank that's actually giving them, what good is it? What good is it? We have to protect American sovereignty first and American national security first. Then, when our own house is in order, we can help other people. It's kind of like when you're drowning, when you're both in the water and you're drowning. Look, if I can't keep myself afloat, I sure as hell can't help you and stop you from drowning. Otherwise, we both drown. So, and what do they say in an airplane? When stuff hits the fan and the air oxygen mask, what does the flight attendant first? Make sure you secure your own mask first. In other words, I get it. You got your 2-year-old, your 3-year-old in the seat next to you. You got to put your mask on first, because what good is if you get hypoxic and you fall out, you're dead, and your kid's going to die too. Secure your mask first, then you can help it is a simple reality or truth or rule that we ought to use in every dollar that we give to other countries. Secure our mask first. Make sure we can breathe. We don't get hypoxic. Then we can help you. Well, I can tell you right now, our mask is very insecure. We are hypoxic. We are running on empty, and our economy is going to fall out of the sky. So a lot of good it's going to get if we start helping other countries at our own demise.
And 90% of the money we send overseas, I feel, is used for the wrong reasons. It's towards useless causes. It doesn't benefit us in any way, and it's just throwing money down the drain. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I don't know if it's
maybe I don't. Go ahead. I don't know if it's that high, but I'm just saying. Go ahead.
Well, it's obviously a huge portion. I think, like, when you go to countries like Haiti, 90% is going into the pockets of their corrupt leadership, and it's one after another after another.
Okay, so I'll give you an example for that. I can't think of. Other than obviously there are scandals where the Clintons took a bunch of money in the Haiti situation, but just giving money to Haiti, would there be any motive for special interest or lobbyists? I can't think of any. That would be more of a.
Well, yeah, hell yeah, there was. You remember Clinton? He had hookups with the corrupt organization that was going to build those homes. You remember after that earthquake, they had these crack houses that they were going to throw up. I don't know, like these modular type trail, whatever they were. But Clinton was dialed in on those who were going to provide that. That was a multi-million-dollar contract to get this. There's always special interest in money and corruption when it comes to these countries. You may have to go a couple of layers out to get to the corrupt people that are profiting off that, but it's always there, almost without exception. It's always there. But you look at some of these countries like Tanzania, for example. I want to say that last year we gave almost $500 million, $400 and some million, and I read an article that they bought a bunch of gold, almost like $500 million in gold. Now, this assistance, this aid that we give, is supposed to have a reason. Build your hospitals, feed your people, infrastructure, on and on we go. All right, well, if they've got money to buy gold, why don't they use that money to buy gold and do the things that we're spending our money to fix for you? So clearly they have their own money. It's just this rank, disgusting concept that we have, the kind of aid, how it goes without any kind of accountability. That one to me was particularly egregious, because you're talking about the only money in the world. That's gold and silver, right? And they're smart enough to know, hey, take your worthless US dollars, almost $500 million, and they go buy the only thing that has real money value in the world, which is gold. It's just so ridiculous. Talk about a slap in the face of the American taxpayer. Really, that's sticking the knife in your back and turning it. But that's the US government. Complete, utter incompetence and misfits, compounded by people that want to fundamentally transform the world, and they're going to use this country to do it.
Yeah, and we often see many of these countries get this type of funding in these large bills that nobody has time to read every single detail.
Yeah.
You ever notice that?
Yeah, right. That's why, one of the things
like buried in there. I feel like a lot of this useless stuff that doesn't benefit anyone is buried in there. It's not, you have to look for it.
Well, and but there's got to be a will because you can find it. I mean, especially now. I mean, think about it. With the advent of AI, you can literally load one of these bills in and have AI pick out everything if you want.
And think about that going forward as times move on and we advance as a civilization and as the political realm advances and evolves. I think that AI is going to pick up on a lot of their secrets, on a lot of their bullshit. It's going to be easier for us to detect things that we wouldn't have been able to detect years ago. Does that make any sense? I feel like they're not going to.
No, yeah, it could be. I know. I would just see. So personally, if I were in Congress, one of the first bills that I would float is that in order to vote yes on any bill, you have to have read it or been briefed in its entirety by your staff. You cannot vote yes on any bill. The whole, remember Nancy Pelosi, well, you got to read it before we got to pass it before we know it's in it. No, you know what? I would pass a bill, even if it was a commitment, not a law, just a commitment to demand every congressman sign that you will not vote yes on any bill unless you've read it. Now, you can vote no, haven't read it, but I'm a no. You're free to vote no, but you cannot vote yes or present unless you've read the bill in its entirety or been briefed on its entirety. I mean, is that too much to expect? These laws impact 300 plus million Americans, and many of them impact 8 billion people on this earth. So it's not unreasonable to demand that our nation's leaders read every bit of these bills or be briefed on them in their entirety. And the fact that they don't, it shows you how and why America has grown to this ugly, disgusting leviathan of just pissing away and squandering the future of America through unfettered access to American taxpayer money and zero accountability for doing it.
What's the amount of pages on those bills?
Well, I mean, look at a 10,000 page stinking healthcare bill. 10,000 pages. Look, we founded this country on 5 pages of Constitution. 5 pages. And we sit with thousands of pages for one healthcare bill. Look, this is what's wrong with Washington. Way too many lawyers, not enough leaders, way too many people that intentionally make things so difficult to understand, so difficult to read, so difficult to grasp, so you don't find out what's in it, rather than having people that understand the fundamentals of economics. And it's very simple. I mean, these kind of bills that are rooted in free market capitalism and economics would be very short. Many of them would never be needed. Allow the markets to decide. But you have too many people that are lawyers and not enough people that understand economics or financial markets. So is it any wonder the country's in a mess? I mean, Jerome Powell's a damn lawyer. He's not even a banker. He's not a financial expert. And if he is, he's a hack. And whatever he knows, he's a hack, just another political hack. This is what happens when you put people who are not qualified to be in positions, whether it's Mayorkas on the border, the guy doesn't know jack squat, or the sodomite Buttigieg, who's the transportation secretary, or Joe Biden in the White House. These people don't understand the jobs that they have. They are woefully incompetent and incapable of handling the decisions that need to be made. And so we wake up every morning, Groundhog Day, another giant mess, and we wonder why or how.
Right. Now, in regards to these bills, when do you think they really became a problem with all this expanding of pages, adding all this extra special interest lobbyist garbage? Would you say the last 20, 30 years?
Well, I mean, Washington has been a problem for a very long time, but I'll tell you, economically, when we got off the gold
standard, one of those things that's a buildup. It takes a while.
Yeah, it does. I don't know if there's one single event that I could say, but I will say this: if there is a single event, it's getting off the gold standard. I mean, that opened the door to all of this. You think about it. I mean, why do we spend so many billions and billions of dollars? Because we can. And why can we? Well, because we don't have a standard. We don't have a gold standard. We don't have to worry about how much gold is in the vault that will determine how much money we could spend. So once we got off that, it was opening Pandora's box and allowing us to do all of these ugly, ridiculous things that we do. So, I mean, I don't know if there's one event. If there was one I had to pick, I would say it was Nixon taking us off the gold standard. That put us, as far as economics and decisions that we make economically in this country, that put us down the path, a very ugly path. And it's just gotten worse with every administration.
What was his mindset and reasoning?
Yeah, well, you go back now. People, it goes back to really FDR. FDR really started off there. He confiscated, he made the ownership of gold, private ownership of gold, illegal. So any idiot that was dumb enough to bring their gold in, cashed it in, it was about $20, maybe $20, 35 cents an ounce. Here's my ounce of gold, and you got a $20 bill and some change. Well, shortly after he confiscated all this gold, they rebaselined the price of gold to $35. It was set. It was $20 an ounce. Then he upped it to, I want to say $32 an ounce. So immediately he created this massive increase in the price of gold, which meant we can spend that much more money. You see, we're still on the gold standard. Well, so we saw that was really almost a default on our debt. Well, then it became illegal sometime later for Americans, because usually if you took a dollar bill, you took a 20, a 50, a $100, you could redeem that in gold. It was redeemable in gold. They took us off that. No longer could you do that. Americans could not turn in their treasury notes for gold, but foreign investors could. If you owned U.S. treasuries and you were Saudi Arabia, China, Japan, whomever, Russia, you could say, okay, I want my payment in gold. Well, it came a time in the 60s, early 70s, where governments were starting to like, hey, I don't really have a lot of faith and trust in these paper bills. You could just pay us in gold. Well, that sent ripples. That was not a good thing, because the last thing America wants to do is pay you in gold. They want to pay you in worthless paper. So they then got us off the gold. There was a lot of going on. And it's been something that had been kind of percolating for a while. This decision to create a global currency that would rely on the U.S. dollar. And that was something that had been going back and forth. So, kind of Nixon made this deal that you couldn't get your money in gold because there was going to be a run on American gold, U.S. gold. But we'll use the dollar as a reserve currency. And oil will be priced in gold or in dollars, and then they'll have all this access to U.S. dollars. And a bunch of suckers fell for it. And what were you going to do? I mean, fact is America did not want to pay you in gold. We weren't going to do it. So that was kind of the solution. Okay, if you don't do that, you have to do this. So that was the rationale. The bottom line is, the short answer is they didn't want to run on our gold, because foreign countries were able to accept payment instead of more U.S. dollars. They wanted in gold. In other words, when you lend the government money, let's say a 10-year treasury, you may get a coupon payment, you may get little payments, but let's say it's a zero coupon. You get your money 10 years later. You lend it and you get your face value. You pay less. The bottom line is, when you get that money, when it matures, I want my money in gold. And they were going to run on the bank, run on the reserves, the gold reserves in America. We didn't want that to happen. They didn't want dollars. They wanted gold. And that was a way of stopping them from being able to get payment in gold. And ever since then, our deficits have been going through the roof. It's just so disgustingly egregious what we have done to this country. And we just think it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We just borrow more money. People can't do that. Corporations can't do that. What makes us think that the United States government can?
Right. No, I hear you. It's crazy. And what's the end game here?
The end game is a global crisis, a collapse of the U.S. dollar. And I don't know if this happens sooner or later, but you can't keep doing it. The end game is currencies like the United States, U.S. dollar, implode, become virtually worthless, but they never get to that point where, we got wheelbarrows full of money. It's just a complete reset across the world, the global world. And I'll tell you, under Barack Obama, the Treasury Secretary, Tim Geithner, floated the idea, supported the idea of a global currency. So he wasn't even standing up and protecting the own dollar dominance. So they talked about it. They've been talking about it for a long time. Matter of fact, when they talked about the Federal Reserve, when you go you go back into the 40s, and the big bankers of the world talked about a global currency. They ended up settling on the global currency being the U.S. dollar reserve currency. But eventually, when it's worthless, when we've got all this, there's a massive reset. And what will emerge, and I believe this firmly and strongly, what will emerge is a global currency that will be run through blockchain technology, that whether you're in South Africa or in San Francisco, you will all be using the same global currency, and nobody will be able to manipulate, and everybody will be on the same ledger. And that's what I see coming ultimately. 5 years, 10 years, 50, I don't know. All I do know is that is the end game, because you can't keep doing this. I mean, we're spending $1 trillion just to pay interest on our debt. Now, you're talking about a $6 trillion budget that's already $2 trillion in the hole. Okay, we're already overspending $2 trillion, and $1 trillion of that is going toward just the interest. It's unsustainable. With interest rates rising, we're going to turn over $20 trillion or $17 trillion is going to be refinanced in the coming year of our debt. All going to be refinanced at a new 3%, 4%, 5%, 5.5% interest rate. Just a few years ago, the average interest rate on all U.S. treasuries, all treasuries outstanding, 26 trillion, was about 1.5%. It's now over 3%, 3.1%. So do the math: 26 trillion times 3.1%. Now, when that rises next year, that's going to bump up 3.5%, 3.75%, 4%. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars just to pay the interest. Look, you can't keep doing this, and that's with $34 trillion in debt. By 2030, we'll be $50 trillion in debt. Yeah. I mean, what does that look like when half of the government revenue, half of the tax money has to be paid just to service the interest? It doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
When the U.S. dollar collapses, what's the road back?
Well, the road back is all part of this homogenization of the entire.
Is that even a reality?
That's the point I made. Yes, that's what I'm saying. That will happen. It's a reality. And the road back is not a road back; it's a road forward. It is a globalization of our currency.
I'm saying that if we get reliable, honest, trustworthy leadership, and obviously, let's say the U.S. dollar does collapse, and we don't go all the way through with the one world currency. Give me a scenario. Give me kind of.
Well, before we get there, I mean, the dollar. We might see the prelude to what you're talking about in the next year.
Right. Like I can imagine us seeing the dollar collapse, and before we get to a one world currency, we can maybe, if we have, like I said, reliable, honest leadership, we can stop that. But what does the road look like to restoring the dollar once it's broken?
Well, first of all,
we've never seen this, and that's
something that we kind of sort of did in the 70s, but
I know, but not to this extent.
Here's what it looks like. What it looks like will never happen. What you're saying is if we get, it's never going to happen. The fact is, it can be fixed. Even when the dollar collapses, it can be fixed. But the reality is it's never going to happen, because here's what it would take. What it would take when the dollar starts going up, what it would take then is what it would take today, except it would be easier to do it today. If we're not willing to do it today, we're never going to do it a year or two from now. And what that means is, what I'm talking about is massive austerity. I mean, take what Greece did in austerity measures and multiply times infinity. Massive, massive austerity measures. That means like purging millions of people off Medicare that are of age and able to work. That means changing drastically Social Security. That means taking at the very minimum, if you're 40 and under, look, you aren't going to collect till you're 75. Maybe 76. I mean, rebaselining when you can collect. You think we can't pass that now. We're not going to pass that. There is a way to avert the disaster. There is a way to get us out of the hole that you're talking about. But if we're not willing to do it today when it's easy, what makes you think we're going to do it then when it's going to be 10 times harder? It would take massive, massive entitlement reform. It would take an immediate cessation of billions of dollars going to illegals. I mean, billions. You got states that are spending $10 billion a year just to freaking educate in healthcare, and more than that, give healthcare to illegals. All these things, you say, what would it going to take? Would be that. Hey, sorry, you're here illegally. You know what? You got your kids in the schools. You're going to get deported. You think we're going to do that? I mean, that would save us billions of dollars. Oh, you're on welfare. You're on government assistance. Sorry, you're not a legal resident. You got to go. Sorry. None of it's going to happen. We're not going to fix Social Security. I mean, we've got a presidential candidate who's crushing it in the polls that is attacking anybody who even suggests that we touch Social Security. Well, I'd like to know, as much as I'm going to support Trump, well, what's your solution, pal? Okay, it's bankrupt, and it's going to be bankrupt before 2032 when they say. So what's your solution?
How do these elected officials expect to sustain this and keep passing bills, keeping this afloat? I mean, they just act like everything's going to be okay, and there's. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
I guess I can.
But think about this, and I'm sure you have heard this numerous times. They've said for years, Social Security is going away, and it never goes away. So, your thoughts?
Well, they don't say it's going away. They say it's going bankrupt, and it is going bankrupt.
But they say eventually it's going to be at some point, non-existent. It's going.
Yeah, I don't know anybody that's really saying that. If they do it, they're not saying it in the political world, because you do that. That's like putting a gun up to your head, blowing your brains out. You can't say Social Security is going away. What you had better say, some are saying.
There's various people that are doing analysis and commentary and are experts in that realm and have said stuff like that. In the long term,
nobody can predict that it's going away. It doesn't have to go away. Now you can predict it's going bankrupt. Anybody who's got like
but
economics 101.
How long can you actually continue on?
We know that. They've already studied that.
How can you? No, but I mean, I understand something. It's bankrupt, and you can continue it for a short amount of time, but can you actually sustain that long term? Can you continue to fund this entire system that's bankrupt? I mean, I don't think that's.
Well, yeah, it's possible. Here it is. All right. I mean, why was it able to be even floated under FDR? Because you collected at age 62.
I mean, unless they just want to keep printing money. I mean, printing money.
Yeah, well, no, but I'm saying you collected at 62. A, voluntary. B, you collected at like 62. B or C, you died at age 58. So 59 years old was the average life expectancy. You collected at 62 or 65, maybe. So you died on average a few years before you're ever going to collect. All right, that's like a huge one right there. That's like great. Yeah, you're probably gonna be dead before we got to pay you. Yeah, we'll take that deal. And the other one was you had 14 people paying into the system for every one person taking out. Today you've got 2 people paying in for every one. I mean, this is just crazy numbers. So yeah, you can fix it. Here's how you fix it. First of all, of age people have to be scrutinized, because there are millions and millions and millions of people on Social Security that don't belong on Social Security. They're perfectly able to work. They're below 62, perfectly able. So you've got that. You also have, you want to raise the age. I mean, raise the age to 76. I mean, that's about on par with average death. If you average men and women, okay, we die. You know what? That's when you can collect. If you want to make it work, that will do it. And you don't have to do it with everybody today. You can take people 40 and under and say, this is the way it's going to work. It's still a tax. Taxes are never any good. But look, it's going to go bankrupt if we don't do anything. But you can't just get rid of it. That's just never going to happen. But you can save it. It's possible to save it. People aren't going to like the solution to save it. Right. But look, we want to save our country. We're going to have to do that. And the same with Medicare. Getting the government out of business, out of medicine, and Medicare put government directly into a massive amount of medicine. And that's why our healthcare in America went to hell. That's why we pay more for prescription drugs than any other country in the world. It's all the problem of government. Everything we hand over to the government, I mean, the only thing you can be guaranteed when the government touches it is you're in a dumber, poorer, and less free. That's the only guarantee you get from the federal government. And I don't care what industry you're talking about. Every time they touch it, it turns to hell. But eventually, the gig is up. But what does the government ultimately do? They find another way to interject themselves. And this is what's going to cause massive more control of the federal government, centralized in the federal government. And the people are just going to capitulate or what? What is your option? Capitulate or die. So people are going to stand over with their hands out, and you're going to have a disappearing middle class that's going to get crushed and pushed into the lower economic rungs of the ladder. And the rich and the wealthy and the controllers will get even more concentrated. The wealth will be concentrated at the top even more. And look, if you want to know what it looks like, go back to the Middle Ages. Go back to the feudal systems when you had the haves and the have-nots. You know, the serfs and the peasants. I mean, that's it seems ugly and extreme, but we're going to be a nation of peasants that are looking for the crumbs that the rich people throw off the tables.
Do you ever see a Europe type of atmosphere with the healthcare system? What Bernie wants? Do you ever?
Yeah.
Do you think they'll implement that?
Yeah, sadly, I do think eventually that's going to happen.
Really?
And yeah, I do think, and it's unfortunate because my son wants to be a doctor, and look, I support him, but part of me is like, man,
doctors are going to lose out on a shit ton of money if this
absolutely
goes into effect.
I mean, you go to
Canadian
Europe.
Doctors and European doctors, I'm sure, lose out on a shit ton of money.
They're regular people. They're right. I've got a friend of mine who moved to Italy. It's very cheap there. His doctor is like his next door neighbor, lives up the road from him. You know what I mean? And I lived in Korea. I've been all over the world. Doctors are regular people. You come here, if you're an orthopedic surgeon,
you go to these other countries, and I feel like the way they obviously Canada is up to date with what American medicine is doing. But I feel like if you go to Korea or you go to some
Canada's social medicine, man. It's all socialized. As a matter of fact, being from Buffalo, the Canadians cross the border on a regular basis.
No, I understand it's all socialized, but are all these countries like Korea, are they all up to date with like what Americans are currently?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Korea for sure, especially
like
Korea.
You go to a hospital or you go to a doctor's office in these, like a country like Korea, is it clean and sanitary?
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I had surgery in Korea. It seemed very clean. Now, you talk about South America. Yeah, it's a whole different ball game.
Dirty, birdie.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of disgusting. But as far as technology,
give me an example. Like just
okay. So for example, we had a sailor on our ship, got injured, had some internal injuries, had to rush him to a hospital. I don't remember the South American country, whether it was Argentina or wherever it was in South America. And the ship doc went with him, and it was not good. It was not good. I mean, it was dirty. And remember, when you go into these, people just think, oh, they got great healthcare in South America, Central Cuba, great. They give you a list. If you need surgery, I mean, that list includes things like, okay, gauze. You got to go buy your gauze. You got to go buy your sheets, your bed linens. You got to buy all of the supplies that the doctors go. You don't just show up like in America, and there you lay, and everything's just your bed and all your stuff. You got to buy all that stuff. You got to show up at these hospitals with all these supplies, including the damn sheets you're going to lay on. So these people have no idea what foreign health. Bernie Sanders, he doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. Go to Cuba, jackass. You think that it's so great? I'll tell you what. Next time you have a heart attack, have them rush you to a Cuban hospital. You'll never do it. So look, I know what these hospitals look like. I know how they act. Technology-wise, some of the countries like South Korea certainly cutting-edge technology. But let me tell you, in terms of the kind of healthcare that we have, it's nothing like that in these countries. Nothing like that. BYOS, bring your own sheets. That's what it's like in these countries. So, no, but eventually, American and doctors, I don't know, it'll be a while, but we'll be just like them. These countries where doctors are just regular people, they make a good living, but, they're not knocking down the, 700, 800,000 a year living in the big houses. I mean, 20 years time, that's probably not going to exist in America.
So this is mind blowing. Your friend's personal experience. You had to get the supplies, bring it to the hospital.
Yeah, that's the way these countries operate in their healthcare systems. But with us, it was just a matter of with this.
So he brought the supplies. That's how it works, and they have a professional there who operates and does the surgery.
Right.
So you have to buy. Wow, dude, where do they have like stores for people to?
Oh yeah, I mean you can buy that. You can buy stuff.
I understand they have stores, but obviously you would need certain items that they wouldn't have at the everyday store. So,
Well, then the hospital will have them, but you're going to get billed for it. And it's kind of like anything else. Hey, I can buy it at the store. I can buy gauze at the store for
but
a
if you're getting
buck.
surgery, I imagine you need more than just gauze. Which
No, but I'm serious. It's just things as mundane as that. Yes, you do. But I'm saying all that stuff, you just show up at a hospital here. In other countries, it's not like that. You don't just show up. Now, maybe you do and you don't have all that stuff because it's an emergency. You're going to get billed for it. We don't get billed for gauze. You go to the hospital, go to the emergency room. Yes, you're going to get billed for the X-ray. You're going to get billed for the doctor. But you know what I mean? You're going to lay on sheets. You're going to get billed for the sheets, the bed that you laid on. I mean, my point is all that crap, the stuff that we just take for granted, is chargeable or required to show up for surgery. It's you don't just show up. My son's got he's got a torn labrum. Maybe he's got to go in surgery on the 30th. Now, I didn't get a list of stuff to bring to a surgery. You got to show up. We're going to go there in the morning and off he's going to go. Yeah, he'll get charged for all these things. But the point is people just think that, Cuba, they have no effing idea. And it drives me nuts to no end because these people, they're talking out of their ass. They don't know. I know. I've been there. And we're looking to mimic these systems. And as ridiculously expensive as U.S. healthcare is, we still have the best system in the world because it's based on the free markets. If the government would have stayed out of healthcare starting in the 60s with Medicare, we would be so much better off. Okay, water over under the bridge or whatever they say. But there are ways to keep and preserve the healthcare system we have. But we're moving in the wrong direction. We're putting more in the hands of government when we should be doing the opposite and taking more people out of government control. And we're doing the opposite.
What about all these hospitals that get away with overcharging the bills? I mean, it gets pretty atrocious.
Well, I don't know how, but the problem is
they don't do enough transparency. They just basically, they're like, here.
Yeah, I mean, that's
probably here you go. Here's.
But why is that?
Go fuck yourself. Have a good day.
Because look, it goes back to when Medicare started price fixing, and that's all we've been doing. A hospital like I can't go.
I notice what a hospital does. Usually they'll exaggerate on the price. They'll overprice it like crazy. Then you call them, they'll take a fraction of what the bill says.
Well, if you're paying cash, you can get a surgery. You get a $50,000 surgery for $10,000. If you're paying cash, like, listen, I don't have insurance. I want to pay, and I know this.
But still, I mean, there's the naive and gullible crowd that are going to pay that. So they do get those suckers, but the people that know the game would call and negotiate.
Well, no, I don't know anybody that goes in to have a major surgery that pays cash that doesn't know that he's going to get a discount. Look, the reason why they do that. No, but it's a reimbursements. The problem why they'll bill $100,000 is because the insurance company's only going to give them 25 cents on a dollar. That's just the way it works. So why do they, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, they billed $5,000 and they got $2,500. So what do they do? Well, we got to get $5,000. We're only getting half. So let's charge $10,000. Well, because then we'll get the $5,000, which is what it costs. So, but then you're like, they get reimbursed $35,000 or $4,000. Well, let's go to this, and I'm simplifying it, but this is exactly what happened. The more when they started charging this, the price for the insurance companies are only going to pay you this much. And Medicare is the most egregious. They're the most vile. They give you the least. Actually, I think the VA does even worse because you can get a $30,000 surgery. I know this because I've got the bills. $35,000. You know what the VA reimbursed? $3,000. I mean, so once they say bill this, they only get this. So you bill this much more, they say you get this, and they bill this. So the disparity between the bill and the reimbursement has gotten bigger and bigger and bigger over time. It was maybe like you got 80% of the bill, then you got 70, 60, 50. Now you're getting like freaking 10 cents on a dollar for some of these. So that's why these hospitals got to bill so much. Also, you've got like some of these hospitals in these inner cities, you got one person with freaking insurance and 5 with no insurance. So they're losing money on 5 people. They got to make it on 1. The reality is you cannot blame these organizations. They just got to manage the money. Otherwise, they're all bankrupt. They got so many people that have no insurance. That's why the people that have got to pay for those. And then it's compounded by the fact that their reimbursement rates are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Thank you, U.S. government. Thank you, Medicare. Thank you, Obamacare. All problematic, all the reason why we have the problems that you're talking about. And it's not transparent. If I call the hospital today and say, hey, what's my son's surgery going to cost? They're not going to tell me. They're not going to tell me, because it's all going to be based on reimbursement rates, how much you're going to get for insurance. And you can't fault them for it. I fault the damn U.S. government. They're creating this system. They're the problem, not the hospitals and the doctors.
Isn't it?
They're just reacting.
Isn't it fascinating how these insurance companies make so much money? They get paid a fortune by their clientele, and they find every reason not to pay. They find every fucking reason to argue.
Well, it's kind of like rich people. They find every reason not to pay their taxes. I mean, honestly, can you blame them? Look, every business is in business to make money.
Right.
That's a business. You're in business to make money.
No,
now,
I know, but we're looking at, a sector, an area, a realm that is exempt from so much bullshit. They have as many rewards and privileges as big tech. They get all these bailouts. It's just bullshit. But keep going.
But again, attacking the business. How many? Think about this. If you got that right or wrong, doesn't matter. How about how many lawsuits against medical insurance against doctors? How many lawsuits you think are legit? I mean, I guess ballpark. How many lawsuits against doctors you think are legit?
Maybe 30%.
That might be generous.
20 to 30.
I say 10% legit. Real mistake, egregious. The guy was drunk. The guy smelled like booze.
I would say it's fair to state that more than not, it is malicious. It's
So who's paying it?
People that are bitter and angry.
Yeah, people are greedy. I mean, come on.
Greedy dudes, stingy fucks. Yeah.
How many rear ends result in permanent injury? Come on. Like maybe one. The guy's car got smashed into a accordion. Yeah, he got permanent injury. I mean, come on. It's just ridiculous. Insurance companies got to pay it. So when you've got greed in individuals and terrible people thinking, it's like, okay, yeah, the insurance companies are greedy, but you know what? The damn people are pretty stinking greedy too. I mean, wanting to get money when there's not. I had a friend of mine. He had appendicitis. Doctor left a piece of gauze in him. I mean, this guy had an infection, almost died. He gave sepsis, almost died. I mean, that was a huge mistake. He never sued his doctor. You know what? He's like, doc, but the doctor did the right thing. Said, I'm not going to charge you for your surgery. So I mean, that was good. But he didn't he could have sued for thousands and thousands of dollars. I mean, he was hospitalized. He had all this. It's a tiny, and it was literally a tiny piece of gauze. It's a mistake. And yes, it's wrong. And that doctor would have been sued, and it would have been slam dunk case. The insurance would have paid out. But he chose not to, because you know what? My friend has integrity. And he knows, he understands that, look, mistakes happen. But, don't expect the average American, especially, when Americans are struggling for the next buck, to be so sympathetic and so courteous when something like that happens to them. So, what came first, the chicken or the egg? The chicken. God made the chicken.
Right. I hear you, man. I mean, what does the future of these insurance companies look like? Are they going to see a lot of bankruptcies? Are they going to see a lot of issues moving forward? I mean, we're moving.
Well, and if government gets involved,
a lot of turmoil, I imagine. Go ahead.
It's like a casino. The only way for a casino to go bankrupt is mismanagement. Look, the numbers don't lie. Mathematics, the payouts, they don't lie. Like, no casino should ever go bankrupt, right? Never. But when you meddle, if the government wants to move in and say people need to make $20 an hour, or if the government wants to start to regulate, then things go bankrupt. Health insurance companies of all kinds, they're all the same too. It's based on the analytics. They know what happens, the chances of things happening. They got all this money coming in. They know how much goes out. What is the probability of this? The probability. It's all mathematics, analytics. It's a guaranteed make money, except when the government gets involved or there's some catastrophic event. If you're in homeowners insurance and you predominantly, cover areas that get swamped, get hammered. That's why a lot of companies kind of went out of business here in the Gulf Coast. But by and large, it's all analytics and mathematics. It's like a casino. You know who wins. You know how many people are going to win, the chances. So you got, as long as you keep the people coming in, you're going to keep making money. And it's no different with insurance companies. But if the government wants to meddle in it and start price fixing, you know what? Whatever guess, take a guess. All go bankrupt, none go, who knows? But it ain't going to be good.
Speaking of the economy, speaking of numbers, San Francisco's biggest, this is just one of many examples showing how we're currently doing economically. San Francisco's biggest mall saw its value slashed by about 75% in December to $290 million, marking a loss of nearly $1 billion since the property was last financed by Wall Street lenders, according to Morningstar Credit.
Yeah.
Holy shit. And this is one of a million examples of these commercial buildings that are just sinking to the bottom in regards to value. It's crazy.
Yeah, this is, like you say, one example.
Wow, you talk about a decrease. Holy shit.
That's every city in America. Every city in America. And that is the problem. That's the commercial real estate crisis is at hand. These buildings have been cut in value. Not only that, but their occupancies, they're, some of them 50% occupied. You cannot support a refinance, and many of them in the trillions of dollars are going to be refinanced in the next 12 to 24 months. We're talking trillions of dollars in refinances, all these buildings. So you're going to try to refinance a building that not only has lost a substantial market value, but has the revenue been massively decreased. And, oh, by the way, the strike 3 year out is interest rates at 5%, the lending rate. So that means they're going to borrow at 8-9%.
Right.
You can't do that. You can't go from a 4% loan on a very high valued thing to underwater at 9%. That doesn't work. I mean, look what happened in the housing crisis 2008. You cannot finance $100-300 million building at 9% when it's not worth what you're trying to get for it. The banks aren't going to allow it, and the people can't do it because the debt service is going to exceed the revenue. So I'm collecting, $5 million a month in rent, $10 million in rent, but my loan payment is $11 million. Again, as I always say, the numbers don't work. And so what are these guys going to do? They're going to do exactly what we have been seeing happening. Here you go, bank. You now own this building. It's been happening already, and it's going to accelerate in the months to come.
Speaking of housing and malls, we've talked on the show before how many of these malls are going to have to make a shift. And we talked about in detail how one of the main options for them, one of the only options, is housing. And there has been experts that have recently come out and said malls and a lot of these office buildings can only do about 10 to 15% of housing when all is said and done, when they revamp. So that's a problem. That's problematic. That's an issue. When you can only take 10 to 15% of that and make it into housing, what are you going to do with the rest of it? I mean, I understand retail, but retail's dying. I mean, this is an issue. I mean, there was a 60 Minutes episode not too long ago, and there was a couple experts on there, and they were talking about this.
Well, I mean, hell,
And a lot
I've
of
been
these
talking about
commercial-
it
a lot of
for
these
I've been
commercial
talking about it
buildings-
for months.
And a lot of these commercial buildings that are failing, when they redo the office space and they want to put them into condominiums, the guy said 10 to 15%. They would only be able to do about 10 to 15% for residential.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this discussion many times, and I've been talking about it long ago, long enough to when I had minutes with Merck. That this is it's not an option. There are many problems with it. Number one, there's zoning laws you have to go through. Now, I just saw an article that New York City is going to try to get rid of these zoning laws where they can cause these, enable these office space conversions to residential. But that's like just the beginning. It's a small thing because you cannot convert them. It's cost prohibitive. It's cheaper to just tear the building down and rebuild. Not cheaper, but it may be cheaper, more practical. But I will say this, that as these prices collapse, that's what's going to happen. They're not going to convert these buildings because it just costs too much. If they can buy them on a song, they'll just knock them down and build them as residential. It's just not an easy thing. You can't just take an office space and turn it into apartments. You can't do any of that. Electrical, plumbing, all of that, and zoning. Same with these malls. I mean, what are you just gonna put a bunch of apartments? It doesn't work that way. Like, we like to think you could just do that, but take people that buy old homes. Sometimes, you want to do a full gut and, modernize the house. I mean, what? You got 8-foot ceilings. That's old tech. That's old homes. Just like these buildings, they're Class C old buildings. People don't want 8-foot ceilings. You want 10-foot ceilings, 12. You can't do that in these buildings. You can't do that in some of these homes. That's why I was like, look, you want all these modern amenities and just bulldoze a place and build new. And that's what a lot of people do when they have sufficient capital. Problem is, we don't have sufficient capital, and how you do that in a market where the interest rates are skyrocketing and it costs too much to borrow the money to be able to do that.
And I'm noticing there's a lot of promoting of living in your car. They're trying to bring back the Sears homes, which, some people still have theirs and they're still in place. Apparently some of them were good, but that's not the point. We shouldn't be having to do that in the first place. The fact is, there's not enough homes apparently.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Sears homes.
These promotions for these homes that can get delivered to you and they can be ready within a couple hours. I'm sure you've seen what I'm talking about.
Yeah, not quite. But the Sears home. I grew up with a friend of mine. Actually, it's
that's what I'm saying. Some of them are good. Some of them are.
No, they're beautiful. They're like royal homes. You would never think.
There were some of them that weren't so good. But go ahead.
Yeah, they don't take hours. I mean, they take a few weeks, but
no, I'm not talking about the Sears homes taking hours. There's like a couple companies right now where they can have equipment to your home within hour and have a house built for you within hours.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like a crack house. So there'll be new innovations. I was with a guy when they were building his house on the beach on stilts. They put the stilts in there. It's right on Pensacola Beach. They came in modules, and they basically staple these squares, cubes together, made a 2-story house on stilts. Beautiful house. You drive by, you would never know it. Never know that house came on the back of a trailer. Beautiful place. Now the place you're talking about are sad, pathetic, like. Here, you'll own nothing and like it. It's kind of like these little tiny rooms that they're renting in Japan. These are sad, sick. But I think technology, people can have beautiful homes. I mean, they're doing right now with where they make a house and they out of like 3D imaging. They got these giant things that basically spray a kind of a composite material, building the walls. It's all
3D homes. There's 3D homes now.
3D homes, yeah, exactly. And they can look pretty cool and be like a real house, not a little crack shack. Here you go. Here's your little what do they call those homes?
How common will it be to buy land more often and just put these types of homes there? Do you think that's going to become a trend?
Well, when you look at the median home is $380,000 plus. Which is down from, I think, 400, but still 300. I mean, 380,000.
Oh, it went down from it was 425 a few months ago, the median. Okay, now it's down. Okay, go ahead.
380. But you know what? When I was a lieutenant in the Navy, I bought a brand new house, 2,000 square feet. It was $115,000. This is in the mid-90s. My first home.
Times have changed, man.
Yeah, my first home. And you know what? As a lieutenant, No problem. I can afford it. Now that same lieutenant.
Let's talk about this for a second. I understand as time goes on, stuff gets more expensive. I get that, but there's only so far that argument can go. I also think things are way more expensive because of bad leadership, because of other variables. But I don't think there's any reason why a median home should cost, what'd you say it's down to, 375 now?
380 something.
380. That's just ludicrous. I mean, you just said, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, it was in the early hundreds for a median.
Well, and you know why that is. When the government monetizes trillions of dollars in debt, that is called inflation. Look, inflation is not, oh, my price is too high. That's the result of inflation. Inflation is when you increase the supply of money and credit, which means many people borrowing, getting more money. When you throw a bunch of money into the system and it's sloshing around, it finds its way to all these goods and services. And when it comes to the housing market, when you make it so easy with 3% interest rates, 2%, we had the housing bubble because, it didn't matter if you were a janitor making $750 an hour, you were going to get a $250,000 loan. They knew they couldn't afford it. Yeah. So,
hey, come on in.
Come on in. That loan officer was going to make his money, and you had the subprime.
Yeah, all these greaseball, smuck, third-party, garbage D-list mortgage brokers that would give out all these disgusting loans. You just want to slap them in the face, seriously.
Yeah. We're right back there now.
They're the reason we're in this mess.
Yeah. Well, when you've got all that money and all that credit running around, it's going to drive prices up. And that's why we saw the housing market. But this is the everything bubble. I don't care if it's Trump throwing $100,000 bills out of helicopters, Biden, all the stimulus money. All that money found its way to everything. And then you compounded it because look, you've got at any given time, this much money, this much goods and services, and that money finds its way. Under the pandemic, starting with Trump and with Biden, massive increase in the money supply. But, oh, by the way, a massive contraction in the supply of goods and services with all the crazy lockdowns. So it just exacerbates. It would have been bad enough if we just did this with the money supply, but we did this with the money supply and this with the goods and services. So massive inflation. That's what caused it. And that's why young people, a Navy lieutenant, he can't afford a $380,000. He makes a hell of a lot more than they did. He does. When I was a Navy lieutenant in the late 90s, makes a hell of a lot more today. They did. But you know what? He can't afford a house. I could. And that is inflation. And that's what happens when you increase the amount of money sloshing around the system. We shouldn't have inflation like that. But we've been started off billions of dollars more than we took in. Now it's trillions of dollars. Now it's many trillions of dollars more than we take in.
Right. And it says bank credit has collapsed. The last time we observed this type of contraction, it was the great financial crisis.
Well, yeah. Hell, we haven't seen these kind of numbers really since like the Great Depression and other crashes.
It's bad.
And the reason why it is, and here's the reason why it is.
On this chart right here, there's the oil crisis that's mentioned, the 1990-91 recession, .com crash, GFC. Obviously not as bad as what we're about to face, though.
No, and because it's like when you pop a bubble that's this big, it makes a mess. If you ever blown a bubble with a soap, it makes a mess. But it doesn't make as big a mess as when you got a ginormous bubble. It just makes a huge mess on the floor. This is the bigger the bubble, the bigger the mess when you pop it. And we've never had bubbles like this. $1.5 trillion in personal debt, corporate debt in the teens of trillions of dollars, national debt, $34 trillion. The global debt is $70 trillion. We've never had debt like this before. And the American people are saddled with debt. When you talk about all household debt, you're like $5-6 trillion. When you throw in cars, student loans, credit cards, you're talking about massive amounts of debt. And in a rising interest rate or an interest rate environment that rose faster than any time in history, they can't take it. And banks can't take it either. The reason why there's no credit available, they don't have the money to lend. A bank just doesn't just go and just sign some paperwork to lend you all. They have reserve requirements. In other words, the bank can only lend so much based on what it holds. Now, of course, they can lend a hell of a lot more than they hold, which is wrong in and of itself, but they're already stretched to where they can't lend much more. So they're going to be very critical. They're not going to lend like they did in 2007 to every swinging dick that has even maybe saying they have a job. They have to be very, very strict because they want to make sure that that money's coming back, that these people aren't going to default. So not only do they have a very slim amount of money to lend out, but because of the times are so difficult, they have to scrutinize who they lend that money to. So they're only giving it to the best borrowers. But many of them just don't have the money. And they don't have the money because the reserves that they have, much of those reserves in US dollars and mortgage-backed securities, are worth 30, 40% less than they originally bought them. So they're not able to lend because they don't have the securities to back it up. And that's why the federal government came in last year with the emergency loan bailout program, the emergency bank lending program. And they used those treasuries and those securities as collateral, but they gave them 100 cents on a dollar on a treasury that's only worth 60 cents. The bottom line is they're stretched for capital. They don't have the money to lend out, and that is not going to change. As a matter of fact, it's going to get worse here in a few months when they can't pay those loans back. But the money is just not out there, and that's bad for people that need access to capital.
And we're talking about all this spending and all this debt and all this economic misery. And one of the big reasons we're here, it's not the only reason, it's one of the main variables, though, is all the COVID spending, obviously. And it was just announced by the World Economic Forum to basically be ready for this new COVID-19 strain with 100% kill streak in humanized mice. It goes to the brain. I don't know if you heard about this.
Yeah, I did. It's like 100% mortality rate.
Right. And look at the timing. It's January. This is about the time 4 years ago when the first, COVID scenario happened, where we locked down and all hell broke loose and the world just went unrecognizable. I mean, what do you anticipate? What do you think? What do you make of this?
Well, I mean, exactly a point that I wanted to talk about today is
it is election season. I mean, as you know, I'm no fan of either of the candidates, but the timing sure is.
Well, here's the timing is this. Forget about our president. Right. The timing is this. China its economy is imploding. It's in bad shape.
Yeah, and when they get desperate, dude, they get dirty, man.
Exactly. When you're cornered, it's like a deer. You get him cornered, man. That thing's going to drop his horns, and he's going after.
Think about what their mindset is. Think about how evil they really are, and I really want to go into specifics on this.
Yeah,
when they see other people doing good, when they see other countries striving and succeeding, they feel like they have to attack. They want their little dicks can't handle it. They get so insecure and angry inside, and it eats them up, and they feel like they have to do something. They have to react.
I mean, I think it's not so much in that so much as they're failing. When they're failing, they're going to export. This is what I predict, to your point, to your question. I predict that China is going to export their problems. Now, I don't know what it looks like, whether they export it with a new COVID. Look, they will not. They absolutely, we saw this in COVID. Whether you think it was there is no way in hell that they're going to go through their problems by themselves. They're not going to suffer an economic collapse by themselves. Right. They're not going to suffer COVID killing their people. They closed their cities down. They did the right thing, but they exported it to the world because hell no, is the world going to get away? They could have contained that. They could have told the world this is a terrible thing, that we're doing everything. They could have won. They didn't do that for months because there's no way they're going to go through this. There's no way they're going to suffer alone. That's what makes them so rank, vile, disgusting people. They'll let if they're going to die, we're all dying because they're not going to let anybody live more than them. So they don't mind other people succeeding as long as they maintain the dominant force. But when they see their little world crumbling around them, you can bet your ass they're going to export their problems. Now they're seeing them doing that today. Now you watch, because their economy is struggling. The world is buying all of their crap crap. They're digging into the stockpiles of old technology, old goods, and you're looking at online. They've got all these Chinese like Amazon styles of Chinese. All this shit, Chinese crap is going to explode on the markets, and you're going to buy stuff that's been sitting in warehouses for 10 years old. I'm telling you, this is going to happen because they need to sell everything in the kitchen sink. Old technology. That means if you're building stuff, whether it's military equipment or you're going to be getting old stock, old crap that's been sitting in a warehouse somewhere. So you're going to have all the failure rates are going to go through the roof on things. The bottom line is they're going to export all their shit because they need to raise money. And when that doesn't work, oh, by the way, maybe we need another pandemic. Maybe we need to have another export of a virus. I don't know. And I don't know if they're that diabolical. I certainly think that they're capable of doing that. But rest assured, they're not going to go through this economic crisis by themselves. And especially if America starts to come out of theirs, which I don't see happening. But let's say America does, you can guarantee China is going to export a problem. What that problem is remains to be seen, but rest assured, guaranteed, China does not go it alone when it comes to suffering. They export it to everybody because they're scum of the earth, and that's the way they think.
When they released it 4 years ago, they weren't doing very well economically, were they?
Well, but see, there it doesn't matter. There it was, I believe it was an accidental escape from their labs. Now, were they holding it?
That it wasn't accidental.
Well, I believe that absolutely. It was accidental. I don't think they're like, let's make this terrible virus and hey, stupid Chinese scientists, bring it out and let us all our people die. No, I think that's when you do this kind of work, that kind of stuff happens. That is a hazard. What was absolutely 100% intentional is that they gave it to the world because they kept it secret. They didn't tell anybody about the leak. They were doing gain of function.
People on airlines and shit over.
Well, absolutely, yeah. But see, I don't think they said, let's create this. Because look, it killed their economy. They'd be stupid for them to just let's everybody. No, what happened was this accidentally hit and impacted them. But then the intentional act was exporting it to the world. There's a big difference there. They were not going to go it alone. And they could have. If they could have said, hey, let's just keep us out. This bad thing happening. We got to shut the... They could have, but you think communist China, these scum of the earth people, you think that they're going to just like, hey, you know what? If we die in China, at least the world lives. Yeah, right. Because they're that kind of people. Xi Jinping is that kind of people. But you know what? I got to save the world. I got to tell them about this terrible thing. And you know what? We may fall on the sword and die here in China, but we're going to protect the rest of you world. That's not going to happen. He intentionally exported to the rest of the world so we can all have to bear the problem. Now, it's the same thing with his economy right now. He's not intentionally killing his economy. Look, Marxism, communism is killing his economy and many other reasons, socioeconomic factors. But you can rest assured that he's not going to go through this economy by himself. He's not going to suffer by himself. He's going to export these problems to the rest of the world. Just don't know exactly what it's going to look like. Hell, maybe it will be a virus that he plagues. I wouldn't say that, that ain't going to happen. He's an evil man.
Go ahead.
I know what he's going to do with his crap. He's going to start shipping all that old Chinese garbage to everybody and their mother. Maybe it'll be old vaccines, changing the dates on them. All these are good. Go take them. I don't know. I just know China, and they export their problems. They never go it alone. And I do know they've got tons of crap in warehouses. I've been there. I mean, they got crap that they can't even give it away. And they're going to start shipping it overseas, and people are going to start buying it. Because, hey, you know what? A sweatshirt costs $100. I mean, Yeezy sells a sweatshirt for $800. You know what? Go to Temu. Go to China. You'll get the exact same thing for $10.
Who do you?
Yeezy's got these slides. Well, they're like $100. What are they? $100? $200? You can buy those slides in China. Look exactly like them.
No, it depends. Depends which ones. Go ahead. Sorry.
Those big, stupid looking ones. They look horrible. They're ugly.
But dude, quality is different.
Well, whatever. You can buy in China for $5 and nobody knows the difference.
The quality is shitty.
Yeah. All right. So I could buy 100 of them. Even if they last a month.
I know what you mean, but who do you think?
My point is China is unleashing all that shit to the world.
Who do you think is going to have a harder time coming back economically, the USA or China?
Oh, 100%, yeah, USA, because China doesn't give a damn about their people. And I've said that for
they'll
years.
just eliminate. Yeah, they'll just kill a bunch of their like they always do.
Yeah, they don't care. They don't give a damn. It's like, hey, whatever. Maybe you get half your rice rations. I mean, just look at the way they treated their people in lockdowns. I mean, in those was it Shanghai, the city that they locked. I mean, you could not come out of your home, and they bring you some food, some little crap little plate of food, and if you didn't like it, tough beans. I mean, you talk about draconian measures. Yeah, the stuff that would never fly. I mean, as bad as our government is now. I mean, can you imagine trying to lock people in their homes like that and bringing them food? They're dressed in all this garb. Come out and get your little prison. I mean, our meals in prison were better than the crap, the slop that they're giving their people. Because you know what? They don't give a damn. You can't compete with a nation that doesn't give a damn about its people. You can't. I'm sorry. You just can't do it. In terms of, trying to manufacture. What you have to do is just not buy their shit. Don't finance their economy. Why are we, and Elon Musk, you know what? He could suck face too, because he's part of the problem. He built that massive plant in Shanghai. You know what? They're shafting him. They stole all his technology. China is now making, I forget the company, making a car that looks just like his, has all his technology, and they are now the #1 exporter of cars. And they're beating him. They're beating Toyota, Japan, all of them. You know what? You greedy suckers, you want to get into bed with the devil? Then don't be surprised when the devil sells you out. And, the solution is you can't compete with these people, so just don't. Pull your companies out. Go to nations like Israel that are free, or India that, have democracies. Look, we're not going to bring it back to the United States. Sorry. I mean, I hate to be the party pooper, but, unless you get a hold on the corrupt Marxist organizations known as labor unions and the massive job-killing regulations, manufacturing's never coming. Sorry, Donald Trump, never coming back to the United States unless you smash the unions and start crushing these job-killing regulations. But that doesn't mean we have to stay with China. China's a bunch of thieving lowlifes.
India is the best place to do the manufacturing.
It's one of the good ones. Yeah.
I would say they're our strongest ally. They would never do us wrong. I think they're in many ways more skilled, more advanced than China. I think they make better products. And
unfortunately, Taiwan's great, but you know what?
Taiwan too. Yeah, you got to be careful. Go ahead.
But China's going to take over Taiwan. Are we going to go to war to protect Taiwan? Right. I doubt it.
Well, like I said all along, I think that's the only war that's justified. I think that's the only country that we should actually be defending. I think for many reasons. Obviously, they've always had our back. They've always been our ally. But the chips, the semiconductor industry, Taiwan, if I'm not mistaken, they control about 90% of that realm. So, I mean, that's a big deal. The U.S.
It's a huge deal. Yeah, it's a very big deal.
If we have China get a hold of that, think about the way China will hold that over our heads.
Well, and it's a very difficult situation, but it does meet my three. It is in our national security interest, it's in our economic security interest, and it is an extension and a promotion of American values, because Taiwan, these people do adhere. These are good moral, they very much align with American ideals.
I can't think of one corrupt thing about Taiwan. I've never, as far as I can remember, I can recall, I don't think there's anything negative news-wise that has ever come across.
Yeah, and you certainly can't apply that litmus test to Ukraine. National security interest, economic security interest, promoting about. I mean, they fail on all three.
Right. How is Taiwan so honest and trustworthy and so great? I mean, they are one of the few countries where you don't hear anything bad.
Well, I will tell you that, Christianity is very big in Taiwan. The Taiwanese people there's a lot of Christians in Taiwan. And they know the perils of communism. I mean, they fought for their freedom against China. So they understand what communism looks like. So, you know what I mean? It's like some of these former Eastern Bloc, citizens, whether it's Poland or countries that were formerly Bulgaria, Romania, and Russia. They come to the United States, and they're the staunchest supporters of American freedom and American ideology. They know what communism, they know how ugly it is. They fought to get out of that. And the same with the Taiwanese, but also it has a strong Christian influence.
Yeah, I get it. Good stuff. I want to bring up the World Economic Forum.
Yes.
All them jerk offs are over there having a good time, celebrating. eating their 5-star meals. It was just announced that the hookers are all booked up, so they're getting a ton of pussy, and dick, obviously, and trannies, whatever they want. There's male escorts, there's female.
A lot of
escorts,
booze, a lot of broads,
a lot of bras, a lot of drugs, a lot of gambling,
a lot of private jets.
a lot of private jets.
Interesting. Yeah, John Kerry didn't like being cornered on that again. Said it was a stupid question, and the guy, confronted him about the private jets.
I just, these people. Did you see the wacky witch that was going around coughing on these elites on stage? There was a clip from earlier today where they had some woman come in dressed as a fucking witch, and she's doing this spell, and she's speaking on the microphone. And then after she's done speaking, she goes to each person sitting down on stage and she coughs in their face. And it's supposed to be good luck.
A spell.
Supposed to bring them.
And they let her do that?
Yeah. Apparently,
their masks.
Apparently she's like the person that is supposed to be putting a curse on the new COVID strain.
Freaks. This is a freak show.
Yeah, this is the witch that is putting the curse on the new COVID strain and keeping it away from all of us. And really, putting her magic out there for us to,
And these people entertain that, and they believe it.
And they make it. The looks on their face. It's unbelievable. It's like spectacular.
Now, can you imagine if somebody went up there?
The acting is spectacular because what they're doing is they are putting on a show and they're keeping a straight face because they want everybody watching to believe it. They want people to buy into this narrative. I mean, these people, I think most of them on stage know it's ridiculous, but they're going along with it because this is what is on the agenda. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, but imagine it being a Christian wanting to go up there and pray for the world and pray for protection. They would never allow it to happen, or you get booed off the stage. But some wacko, crazy witch.
Speaking of controversy, speaking of people that like to shake things up and really stir the pot and tell people what they don't want to hear, the leader of Argentina went up there and started talking about a lot of the issues going on in the world with communism, with feminism, with socialism, with all this bullshit with the Western world. And I don't think they like it.
They've also invited the president of the Heritage Foundation, which is who's going to really give them the ups and downs about everything that they do there in Davos. He's going to attack it. And he's going to say everything that Davos does and President Biden has done is horrible for the global economy, and people should reject it. So he's supposed to go on, I think, at 9 o'clock Central, maybe 10 o'clock, or 9 or 10 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. And it's going to be live streamed on, I think, what's his name? Steve Bannon is going to live stream it. But yeah, the Heritage Foundation guy, president, they actually invited him, and apparently he's got a whopper of things that he's going to launch on them. So it's going to be interesting.
I mean, we obviously should be paying close attention to everything they're discussing this year. So I feel like this year at the World Economic Forum is one of the most serious.
I think every year,
everything we're facing as a country, as a nation, as the world, they're planning the most nefarious, most evil. And this isn't us putting on our tinfoil hats. This isn't us being conspiracy theorists. They're out there in plain sight showing us their true colors.
And they have been since the 70s. The problem is we haven't responded. The reason why we have, administration that is pushing and going to demand, I think it's 69% of all vehicles produced by 2032 must be electric vehicles. There's a reason why we're there, because we ignored the craziness of the 70s and 80s. The climate agenda, the zealots that were there was global cooling, then it was global warming, and now it's climate change. We ignored it. That's why we're here. So yes, we need to absolutely take them seriously. But we've been failing to take them seriously for decades. And that's why we're where we're at. That's why we have this absurd push to power our cities with solar and wind. It's just asinine. But it's not about whether or not it's practical. It's about controlling the mess. I mean, I just saw an article. I don't know if you saw it. I mean, look, the country's getting blasted with cold weather. The Elon's cars are just shutting down. I mean, you're driving and the batteries are just getting drained so quickly. They're just dying. People are waiting to charge their cars. They're dying. One guy says it takes his car 45 minutes to charge. He put it on all night and what is even barely charged up. So all of this, we know the dangers, we know the perils, but they don't give a damn. It's not about that because as far as they're concerned, get rid of all cars, period. Electric, combustion, it doesn't matter. They want to suck you into the city centers where they control you. If you want to go from A to B, you take public transportation. They like that. Then they can keep an eye on you. They got all the cameras in there. You can't be in your own private. If they could have their way, ultimately, this is the Davos dimwits. They want to talk about electric vehicles, but you know what? They have it their way. The ultimate goal is no vehicles. Public transportation only, and put you all in these green cities. Look, this is a deranged, evil, satanic movement. So satanic that, like you say, they got witches up there calling spells and breathing on them. This is a satanic, ritualistic society of people who are bent on massive redistribution of wealth and controlling the entire world's population. Wake up, America, because it's already here. They're not knocking on our door. They've already kicked our door in and come and taken over our kitchens, our living rooms, and our bedrooms.
It's true. It's true. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come right back. Stay with us, everybody. And we are back. Daily S&M. Greg, breaking news. Chinese lab had COVID-19 mapped 2 weeks before global outbreak.
Well, yeah, they had a problem for months with
And this
that.
was breaking today, according, to the Wall Street Journal.
Right, but they had months to understand what happened with this COVID. They knew it was. Look, I believe that the leak happened maybe September, October, and I say that because I have a friend of mine who lives a friend of a friend who lives in Hong Kong, and he said there were a lot of deaths, unexplained deaths in China. In the months prior to the world finding out about the COVID thing.
Right.
So, I mean, look, the truth is we're never going to get the truth out of China. This is a communist dictator, no more than we get the truth out of Vladimir Putin and Russia. We're just not going to get it. But I mean, we know enough. We know enough about what happened. We know enough about what Fauci, his role, involvement in it. And, unfortunately, I was at the gym today. There's a lady in the gym wearing a mask, and I wanted to walk up and say, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? I mean, did you not get the memo 60 million times? The memo, the masks don't work, lady. You're actually hurting yourself. You're working out and you're restricting your oxygen flow in your body. It's asinine, people.
Right. Yeah.
But there is another, to touch of talks. Did you see the how the FBI was looking to get basically have Bank of America, which Bank of America provided without any problems voluntarily, information on buying habits of from people, customer data, things like MAGA, Trump, actually even Bibles, purchasing of Bibles, looking at flagging individuals that went to Cabela's or Dick's Sporting Goods, those kind of places, to kind of find out what people are buying. So, I mean, it's just really incredible that what this government, the weaponization of this government, the extent they're willing to go to. Anybody who thinks that you're just going to be able to do what you want, preserve your freedom in this kind of a government is sadly mistaken and naive. They will stop at nothing to censor you, to stop you, to control you, and maybe even to kill you. And I believe that.
And look at how the mask situation was totally debunked. Look at how the social distancing was debunked. But when this all was going on, the government's enforcement of that and the way they controlled that narrative and spewed that on the public and was able to manipulate and brainwash and indoctrinate the majority into living like this and giving people lectures that didn't follow it. I'm like, what the fuck? This is the ultimate mind manipulation. This is like the greatest form of control.
Yeah, and you know what? Sadly, I get it. I know the purpose of
even if something's untrue, if they repeat it enough times and they're convincing enough, they can make it seem true. And this is exactly what they do.
And I understand the goal, the agenda, the objective of the government to do that. And these people, what bothers me is the American people are so damn stupid. So damn stupid.
Yeah. Only, and like we say, less. I think saying 30% is too generous. I'm going to say less than 30% fought back. Yeah. Less than 30%.
When you see people that are wearing their masks today,
in their car, I still see that.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if these people are reachable. I don't know if they're reachable.
Right. Some of them, and I've said this, are just too far gone. Like you just can't. You can't reason with them. You can't help them.
They hate the truth. They don't want the truth. To give the truth to these people is but to give more multiplied reason for misinterpretation. They're just set in their ways. And you know what? The reality is it's just extreme ignorance and pride. It's rooted in ignorance and pride.
And we just heard Tedros at the World Economic Forum. You know who that is, that black guy. And he what is he in charge of? I think he's in charge of the WHO, if I'm not mistaken, the World Health Organization.
Yeah.
But long story short, he is now saying that what we experienced with COVID in the last couple of years was just the start, and things are going to get way more severe and be ready. And you know what? I believe the evil bastard, because if we're seeing this strain has that 100% kill rate in humanized mice, I mean, and it goes to the brain. So, geez.
Look, I'm a student of the Bible. I believe what's going to happen in the end times will happen eventually. I don't know when. And that is a world government, a world economic system, and ultimate and global control over the people, where you will not buy and sell without the government knowing what you're doing. You have to have a special, we're already working on it right now, blockchain, central bank digital coins, implanted chips, can't buy or sell without, we're going there. It's coming. I don't know when it comes, years maybe, it doesn't matter. It's coming. And all of these things are prelude to what is to come. And it's an extreme loss of freedom. Our liberty will be eviscerated. And what really is bothersome is that these people who are in control and make these decisions will never be subjected to the draconian liberty eviscerating misery that the rest of us are going to be subjected to. They're not going to be subjected to public transportation or even electric cars for that matter. They're going to stay in their limousines and their big jets. And we're all just going to suffer. We are the peasants, and they're the serfs that maybe will flick us a crumb.
Mark Zuckerberg is building his $100 million bunker.
Of course he is.
Or his $200 million bunker in Hawaii, whatever.
Because what is he afraid of? He's afraid of the people, the populace, to finally get fed up with them and launch a revolution and go after all these scum that put us there. And they're all doing the same thing. He's not the only one. He's just the most prolific. He's the most high profile. They're all doing the same thing. These billionaires, they're not going to live amongst us. They never do. They're not going to walk amongst us. And when the proverbial feces hits the fan, they'll be a dot. They'll be speaking through artificial intelligence. They're not going to allow themselves to be targets, because they will one day become targets. It's going to get so bad. It's just going to be like that. It's like those movies that we saw where just people just rise up and it's just total global social chaos. We're kind of seeing it with BLM and Antifa. We're seeing our cities rot and implode. But imagine when hundreds of millions of just everyday Americans are being oppressed to the degree in which these people will oppress us. There's going to be a breaking point.
Yeah, people can only take so much. And while go ahead.
I was going to kind of shift topics because I got another prompt thing about. I didn't read the article, but I know there's been talk about it. That there's going to be the title of it had something to do with outrage based on Trump's VP pick. So, and I think it may have said if he does X, Y, and Z, then they're going to be outraged. And it may have been alluding to the fact that there's about Nikki Haley. Been hearing anything about that?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it is.
Here's my take. Here's what I think. And Trump is a sly. He's slick. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm Donald Trump, this is what I'm thinking. Nikki Haley's a piece of garbage.
Dude, he's not that slick, man. Look at all the idiots he hires and look at all the morons in his administration. He's not that slick.
No, but he knows how to manipulate people. Here's what I can see. This is what I would do if I was Donald Trump. I would get Nikki Haley to come in and offer her the job, and close doors, offer her the job. Because if she takes it and then completely ignore her and pick somebody else. See, if he does that, he has locked her in a box. Because what's she going to say? She has to immediately be on his side, because if she goes and tries anything, he's going to say, yeah, she's sour grapes, wanted a job, wanted to take the VP. She came to me, begging how much she wanted to be the VP, and I dumped her. That's why she hates me. You see, he can do that and manipulate her and say, look, I offered, she wanted the job, and I took it away from her. But he has to get her in first to talk about that, to offer it, and for her to accept it. Now, if I was her, I would say, yeah, no thanks. I'm never going to be interested in being your vice president because that's the only way that she can insulate herself. But it wouldn't surprise me if the only reason why Trump is floating this Nikki Haley thing is so he could put her in a box for that reason. Offer her and then like it'd be never a serious offer. It's just to lock her in. And then he would go pick somebody else. And then you'll keep your mouth shut, Nikki, or we're going to talk about how you were wanted to be vice president. And I rejected you.
While we're on the subject of Orange Man, he's talking more shit, more nonsense, how he's going to start this mass deportation, going to deport more illegal aliens than anybody's ever seen. Dude, you deported less illegals than Obama.
Yeah, all true. Here's the thing.
I mean, this is.
But do you think Democrats? What do you think the Democrats going to do?
Do people not understand? He talks and he talks.
Yeah. So what does that mean, though?
And then he said the same stupid shit. No. But here's the problem. He said the same stupid shit in 2016. He's going to deport.
We had a secure border.
He's going to deport all these illegals.
Maybe, but we had a secure border.
Less than Obama, though.
Maybe, but we had a secure border. Look,
but he deported less than Obama. I mean, that's pretty weak.
Yeah, I mean that number is kind of. There's no. Obama wasn't actually deporting people. Sending them back overseas. When you're turning them away at the border, okay. But here's the thing. Because millions were coming under Obama, so maybe under Trump, nobody crossed the border because he wasn't letting them. So it was remain in Mexico.
But what about the people that were already here? I mean, he was.
Yeah, but that's not the numbers counted. That's not what they're talking about, though.
He was talking about during his campaign about.
I know, I get it.
No, listen.
But when you talk about Obama, these are people that come in the country they send right back over. They count that as a deportation.
Right.
That's my point.
But look at the whole immigration stance of his.
Seriously, do you think Obama was better on immigration than Trump?
No. Obviously, Trump was better, but that's not saying much because Trump coddled DACA. He wanted to keep DACA alive.
That's right.
I mean, we could go on and on how he was.
No, I get it. But
but this is my
Obama created DACA.
Now, because he's running for office and he wants to get elected again, he talks these big games, and he's not. It's just
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, though. This I know because this is what Trump did. Maybe he's not going to deport all of them. Look, I frankly think that once these pieces of crap are in our country, you're not going to get rid of them. No more than you're going to confiscate my guns that I can hide in my drywall. But I do know this for a fact. Any Democrat, I don't care if it's the guy I don't care who they are. None of them are going to secure the border. Trump will.
Fetterman would.
Yeah, Fetterman's not running. Okay, nobody that's running on the Democrat side, nobody that's even a Democrat will secure the border. Fetterman won't. He talks about it, but he's not going
to. Kennedy would.
Yeah, well, I doubt it. I doubt it.
You don't think Kennedy would?
No, not compared to Trump. Not in the least bit. No. Look, he's just he talks good against Fauci and he's got some good things, but look, he's no conservative. Look, Trump will secure the border. You know why? Because Trump, he's number one, but he does have America in his top 5 of I loves. All right, yeah, it doesn't make it to Ivanka's number 2, maybe. Look, at least loving America is in his top 5. Okay. It's not even on the list of any Democrat. Matter of fact, these people despise America.
I'm doing this for you. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this
for you. And I get that. But I will say this. The Democrats are doing this to me. They absolutely are. They're attacking 75 million Americans when they say the MAGA this and the MAGA that. That is me. That's damn right me. I do want to make America great again. I do want to do that, as millions do. So, yeah, I get it. Trump ain't doing it for me. I don't give a shit because they are doing it to me. They are doing that to me, and I'm not going to let them do it. And if that means supporting Trump 100%, I'm going to do that.
Where are we at with all these court cases? What are they going to do anything to him?
What's that?
Are they going to get him with any of these court cases?
I doubt it. I don't.
Not going anywhere. Not going anywhere.
I don't see them. I don't see them.
No legs on these cases.
I don't think so. I think that I see the Supreme Court striking all of them down. The Supreme Court doesn't even want to go out on a limb with Obamacare. They don't now. Will they Sotomayors and Kagans and some of those crackpots and wackos. Yeah, I could see them, but I don't see these cases and kicking them off the ballot winning at all in the Supreme Court. They're not going to take away 75 million voices. 75 million. They're not going to do that. I don't care what. This is not going to happen. And it's a good thing, because I'll tell you, if it doesn't, if they uphold it, I mean, you want to talk about a civil war in America? If Trump loses in the Supreme Court, if these states are allowed to keep him off the ballot, you're talking about national chaos like we've never seen before. Like we have never seen before.
Do we still think that Gavin Newsom is going to replace Biden?
I think that's what they would love to happen. I think Biden, as long as he's still got a heartbeat, he's going to take this to the bitter end. Now, maybe he gets reelected and just says, here's the keys, Kamala, because it's the only way she's ever going to make it to 1600 Pennsylvania as the chief executive. She's never going to make it there on her own. It's like she's never done anything on her own. She slept her way to the top. The only thing she got is because she fit she checked the boxes. She used affirmative action, DEI, whatever you want to call it. She's never gotten there because she's intelligent, because she's a strong leader. Never. She's never gotten anything. So the only way for her to get to White House is going to be he gets elected and he dumps it off to her, gives her the keys. I think they prefer it not to be that way, because I think even Democrats are scared of this freaking utter clown, cackling buffoon of Kamala Harris. So, but who knows? I mean, look, Biden keels over, falls down the stairs, something, all bets are off. But it's going to be Trump. I mean, all else equal, it's going to be Trump versus Biden. And I think there's going to have to be massive, massive amounts of ballot harvesting and, what we would say is voter fraud, things that are going to violations of state constitutions and state election laws, which the Constitution allows states to run their elections. And I think there'll be massive violations and, just be like 2020. The courts are going to ignore what's happening. Well, there's no damages. You have no standing because you haven't had any damages yet. And then after the damage is done at the election, they say, it's too late. So, I mean, we've seen this played before. I mean, it worked for them last time. Why the hell wouldn't they redo it? I just think they're going to have to ramp up because Biden is so disastrous and his support is so pathetically low. I mean, I don't know how they can do it without cheating and harvesting millions of ballots in the right cities.
I hear you. I want to bring this up. Did you hear the UK government is sending a warning, and they're saying be ready for war with China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea in 5 years? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, look, the world is less stable now than it was in 1940. Look, anything can happen. And there's economic chaos around the world, and there's greed. Little midget man Zelensky, this guy is a freaking charlatan who's playing the entire world while he and his people get rich. I mean, I get it, he wants to survive, but these people are stealing billions of dollars from the United States and from other countries for that matter. China's economy is imploding. War always seems to kind of rear its ugly head when there's economic problems. So who knows? I mean, North Korea has been a problem for a long time. But you know what? If I were sitting in another country and I knew and understand world and geopolitical events, I know that America is the key to world stability. And America has never been so unstable, so weak, so pathetic, so feckless. So, I mean, predict a war anywhere. Africa, Asia, Europe, I mean, just name it. America is weak. We have a weak administration. We have the most pathetic president in the history of this country. Why wouldn't it be obvious that war is going to break out? Because every evil person, dictator in the world, I mean, this is like prime time to carry out your aggression or to take over somebody. I mean, this is the perfect time. They didn't want to do it under Trump. I mean, and even George Bush, they thought twice, but, they knew Bush, he was no pushover. I mean, hell, he sent his people in because they, tried to kill his old man, whatever. Point is of course you could predict these kind of horrible things happening. It's not so much geopolitical because the world is always in a fray. We're always just one bad event happening from, taking us into a world war. But when you look at the United States, the leadership, just complete, utter failed leadership, it's easy to predict these kind of things in the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, we already have bad relations with China. We have bad relations with Russia. Iran, we have horrible relations with. North Korea, not good relations. So, yeah, makes sense.
America has no moral standing anymore under this sleeping buffoon. I mean, the guy doesn't even know what. It's so just disgusting. The world sees that and laughs. There's nothing about this guy that exudes competence, that exudes strength, that exudes resolve. There's nothing about this guy that exudes American greatness or exceptionalism or the desire to preserve American greatness and exceptionalism. Everything about Joe Biden exudes pathetic weakness. I'll just roll all over this clown. Not to mention the fact that he's freaking compromised on so many fronts. So, I mean, is it like a crazy thing to predict wars that are coming? No, but I think understanding why they make these predictions, if it was Donald Trump, they would not be making these predictions. If Trump were elected in a second term, they wouldn't be talking about this. But this guy has done so much damage, and he's so really just weak that when America is the key to global stability and we are unstable ourselves and we're pathetic, the globe has lost its stability.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So,
and we're gonna keep getting into more wars, I feel, even before the election. Like, it's just gonna keep going and going. They're gonna try whatever they can try while this weak leadership is in effect.
That could be. I mean, look, they may realize that we got to get, especially if it starts looking like Trump's going to be elected.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. A new report here. California Attorney General says state law allows schools to hide students' trans identities from parents.
Yeah.
California's constitution allows schools to hide a student's transgender identity from their parents. State Attorney General Rob Bonta claimed in a legal alert to school districts late last week.
Yeah.
Bonta warned school districts across the state against policies requiring school employees to notify parents if a student is identifying by a different name and pronouns or asking to play on sports teams or use the facilities of the opposite sex. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, if you're a parent in California and your student goes to a public school, then that's on you. It's time to get the hell out of that state, or certainly at the very least, bare minimum, take your son or your daughter out of these radical leftist institutions that are so-called, halls of education. This is the way the radical left thinks. They're not about peaceful coexistence. They're not about acceptance. This radical LGBTQ, it's about fundamental change. It's about forced compliance and forced participation. It's not just forced compliance. It's forced participation. And listen, I mean, they make no bones about what they stand for. So to the people of California, get your kid out of public school. Don't support it. Or get yourself out of the state completely. It's outrageous.
I can't even believe this is where we're at as a society, as a civilization.
Yeah. But this is what happens when
even
truth is supplanted.
Even 10 to 20 years ago, Democrats would have found this ludicrous. But go ahead.
No, but what happened 10 to 20 years ago, we started to supplant truth with imagination. We started to replace reality with fantasy. And when you do that, you get chaos. And this is exactly what we have. And look, chaos is what the Marxists want. Whether they call themselves Marxists, and many of them do, the Bernie Sanders, they proud to be called themselves Marxists, or they want to call themselves social democrat, whatever they want to call themselves. They're authoritarian, they're Marxists, they think that government should control everything. And it's really a satanic movement. It's exactly what they want. They want ultimate control over the people. And they're going to force you to comply, and they're going to force you to participate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we were talking about illegal aliens earlier. This governor who's newly elected in Louisiana is doing it right. He's ordering the state of Louisiana to track taxpayer cost of illegal immigration. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry will now require the state's agencies to track all costs associated with illegal immigration to give taxpayers a transparent picture of the bill they are being forced to foot due to Joe Biden's policies. On Tuesday, Landry signed an executive order that will have Louisiana agencies monitor the financial burden of illegal immigration with the ultimate goal of disclosing the figure to state taxpayers and curb such costs.
Yeah.
I mean, more states should be doing this. We're not.
Well, this is what we just talked about earlier in the show, how it is putting enormous strain on our social safety nets, our education, our healthcare. I mean, massive strains in cities. 10, 20% of the budgets may be going to illegals. This is just not sustainable. And the federal government simply has to step in and prohibit these things, these egregious violations of our national sovereignty from happening. But they're not going to do it. And for two reasons. What I said, everybody's been talking about, hey, they're going to create more Democrat votes. Yes, that's like the obvious, okay, low hanging fruit, clearly. And if you had any doubt, I don't know where you've been, because I've been saying that for years. But you know what else I said for years, which nobody's talking about? But here is the even more diabolical, devious, and destructive agenda of the left. It is going to create a massive expansion. It is creating a massive expansion of the federal government. So yes, absolutely. You are right to talk about a Democrat party that will never be voted out of office. I said this when I ran for office years ago. That's exactly it. But I also said it is also about a massive increase in the federal government, because there's going to look at it. I mean, look at New York City. They're demanding money for the federal government. It is facilitating the massive growth of the federal government to have to pay for all of this. And all that does is create more reliance on the federal government. It's exactly what they want. Yes, they want Democrat votes. Yeah, obviously. All right. My 15-year-old kid can figure that out, 16. But what people don't realize, it is creating a call for a massive expansion of the federal government to pay for it all. This is a long-term, devastating blow to American exceptionalism and American economy. The people better wake up. Yes, I get it. It's votes, and that's horrible enough as it is. But it's also about expanding the federal government, and that is long-term that we'll never dig ourselves out of.
Yeah, and expanding the federal government seems like it just never ends. Seems like it just gets bigger and bigger. They keep adding more and more government jobs.
And reliance.
All these different extra departments. It feels like even the White House cabinet positions get bigger and bigger.
And it's problematic enough.
Maybe that's just me, but I don't know.
Well, that's problematic enough.
And DC jobs in general, they get bigger and bigger. Go ahead.
Yeah, but in all that we have, but we're compounding it with 10 to 15 million more people in the last 3 years.
Right.
I mean, just think about 15 million people. I mean, I get it. The government, the largesse, disgusting rank, the city of harlots, whoring themselves. I get it. And governments all over, the state governments all over the country go. But you know what? At least we could solve, we could keep 15 million more illegals living off the government. You know what I mean? It's so, we're just creating more wars. I mean, World War I or II was difficult enough fighting it in Europe that we had to go to the Pacific. We had to fight it, in Japan and in the islands. It's hard enough fighting one battle and one battlefront. Now we got multiple battlefronts. So, the government is expanding. It's bad enough and disgusting enough when we're growing organically from our own people. But when we're allowing tens of millions of people to come in this country, that's just beyond the pale.
Right. And you mentioned New York City. This is hilarious. Mayor Adams imposing 11 p.m. curfew on illegal aliens. New York City Democrat Mayor Adams is considering the idea of setting a curfew for illegal aliens in state-run housing after rising crime and worrisome safety issues exploded around migrant shelters, setting legal residents on edge.
Yeah.
What do we think?
Look, long past here.
Like they're going to follow laws. They already came here illegally, breaking.
They really think. Think about it. These people are laughing all over the world. Come to America, and you could just get all this free. And you know what? Trump is right. They're not sending their best. The best aren't coming here.
Right.
You know, I mean, it's and what it is a complete disregard, and really, it's utter contempt for the American people. But you know what? Yeah, now Mayor Adams is hitting close to home. It's all right when it's happening in other cities. Now it's happening in his city. Now he's a staunch defender of securing the border. Yeah, because it's in his backyard, affecting his money, his pocket.
Right.
You know, he doesn't get reelected. He doesn't get all that money and all the benefits of being mayor to the biggest city in America. So of course he hates it now, but he's a sick, rank hypocrite because for years he said the exact opposite. And he made that city a sanctuary city and protected. You know, you could have cut it off a long time ago, but you didn't. And they never care until it's affecting their own back pocket. So yeah, look, they should be doing more than that. How about this? How about Mayor Adams? You rather than spend, want $5-10 billion from the government, how about you ship them all out of the country? You say, sorry, no room at the inn. You're out. We're shipping you back to where you came from. Oh, you came from Mexico. We're shipping you back. How about we do that to Mexico? We're shipping them all back to Mexico. We're taking them to the border and send you off. There you go. You're going. How about that? No, that's never going to happen.
And it says here, according to the U.S. Civil Rights Commission, illegal immigration makes Black Americans way poorer, which we've already said that
absolutely
several times, and that's a big problem. Minority communities.
That's why blacks are against it.
The Democrats claim to be, the champions for the minorities, but all they do is hurt.
We know they're not. We know they never have been. We know it's all about control and wealth redistribution and staying in power. But yeah, that's why blacks in America, by a very large margin, do not support all that. They vehemently oppose all this illegal immigration. I mean, listen, it's hurting them in their inner cities and the housing and the money available for their health care, for their education, for their housing. I mean, it's all getting massively gouged in these cities where there's huge illegal immigration problem.
Right. What do we make of the FAA recruiting workers with psychiatric problems to be more diverse and inclusive?
Yeah. I don't know what it's going to take to put an end to this whole DEI thing. It's really sickening. But again, does it make us better? Mark Cuban with all this asinine nonsense.
God, he's a clown.
Complete ass clown. Complete ass clown. Look, all DEI does is create quotas and undermine security, safety, and competency. That's all it does. It doesn't make us a better. I'm sorry, it doesn't, because it's not about just getting a bunch of people. Look, the free market will do that organically. You think the free market wants to today say, "You're black. I know you're I know you're Ben Carson. You're black. I don't want you to do this surgery to separate these two twins." I'm sorry, that's not America today. It's like, I don't care. You're Ben Carson. Come separate these two Siamese twins, whatever we call conjoined. Come separate them. All right. Now you're black. Stay away. Look, those days are long gone in America. The free markets want the best, and they don't care what color you are. They don't care what you got between your legs. They want the best. And that's what made us great. And, Cuban and his whole nonsense, because somebody said, look, your own basketball team certainly doesn't reflect it. He's like, it's just so ridiculous. It's not ridiculous. It's absolutely correct. When you talk about on the basketball court, you want the very best people. You don't care what religion, what color. You want the best. And so why should we be fun, handpick where we do that? Yeah, but in corporate America, it's different. Look, it's exactly like that. You want winners, you go for the best people. And nobody's that stupid. Nobody's going to handicap their company. The days of a guy just hating you because you're Asian or you're black or even you're white, and I'll tell you what, if there's racists anywhere, it's black-owned companies that will refuse to hire a white guy because he's white. Right. So, look, you want to be successful, you want to make it, you hire the best. And DEI does not promote that philosophy.
Very well said. Agreed. Did you see the article, the report that France and Germany are vowing to fund Ukraine for as long as necessary?
Yeah, let them. Thank you. Good luck to you.
Huh?
Good luck to you.
France and Germany will continue to support Ukraine in its war with Russia for as long as necessary, top diplomats from the two major EU powers declared following a meeting in Berlin on Sunday.
after traveling to Kyiv to signal that Ukraine remains a top priority for the French government. Recently installed Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs Stephen Sojourn stopped off in Berlin to express a united front amid growing doubts about continued funding from the United States and potentially even the European Union.
Well, isn't that amazing? America says, F you, you're not going to get our money. Well, Republican Americans. And they said, and what are the countries that matter most? The countries that are at the greatest risk to, we're going to help you. Exactly. And that's the point. Okay, this is your problem, Europe. This is not in our economic security interest. It's not in our national security interest. Putin is not looking to take over Europe. He might think in his feeble mind that might be. He's not going to do that, and he hasn't shown any desire to do that. He wants to ensure he's got a buffer. He wants to make sure Ukraine doesn't go NATO. So look, step up. Look, Germany, France, Italy, all you countries. It's your problem, not ours. So that's exactly what should happen. This is the result of, listen, not strong enough, because you've got, look, I never disliked McCarthy, kind of liked him. And I certainly don't dislike Johnson, but look, they're all ass clowns. And in fact, everybody in Washington who will pick the government staying open over securing our own border is totally part of the problem. So they'd ought to be saying, look, no Ukraine money, period. And we're not passing anything unless we secure. And I don't mean sending more people to process. I'm talking about cutting it off, not 5,000 limit. No, that's this asinine republic. Listen, we are not securing our own border, and yet they're going to we can't shut the government down. Well, what good is the government open if they're making these disastrous decisions? And zero money for Ukraine. Sorry, not our problem. Europe, wake up. It's your problem. You start paying for it. And guess what? They're starting to realize that. You know, just this country and the leadership and the misguided idiocy on both sides of the aisle is it's frustrating to a point where it really is more like utter disgust.
No, absolutely. I just don't know how much longer.
Yeah, I don't either.
I mean, what do you say? I mean, I
don't know.
They're getting money. What's stopping Zelensky from continuing this madness? If he's getting funding,
nothing. As long as the money's flowing, nothing.
So if these countries, I just don't see these countries saying no, because it's going to create, I feel, a narrative that would make them look bad. So they just have to continue on this path of funding Ukraine, because Ukraine has this, media portrayal that they're this loving, sovereign, peaceful country, and they need to be protected.
A lot of it is, I think this opinion about Putin that he must be stopped and this is horrible. And look, make no mistake, the guy's a piece of crap. He's a rotten guy. But Zelensky's a piece of crap, rotten guy too. Maybe the lesser of the two evils, maybe. I don't know, maybe. I'll say, okay, Zelensky's the lesser of the two evils. But the fact of the matter is, many of them really kind of have I think, distorted view of Russia and Russian aggression, and they really think that they're doing the good thing. But really what they're doing is not a good thing. Ukraine put themselves in this hole, and what they're doing is they're paying for thousands and thousands of Ukrainians and Russians to die. Now, look, maybe you think it's okay Russians die, but do you think it's okay that Ukrainians die too? The more you allow this, the more thousands and thousands of wives with families are going to have no fathers in the home. People are going to be killed. The cities are going to be destroyed. The infrastructure is going to be obliterated. Where's the end game here? How is this good? Now, I'm not saying give Putin all of Ukraine, but this thing could have been solved months ago, and it could have been negotiated with people who really wanted peace, something that Biden certainly did not want. Right. And so look at all this is doing. You're prolonging. This is not a good thing. It's not a good thing. It should have been solved a long time ago. And the more money you send over there is the more people you're killing on both sides. But yeah, okay, you'll kill some Russians, but make no mistake, the Russians are kicking the crap out of Ukrainians. They just are. You put your head in the sand. They're dying. They're killing them. Yes, they're suffering casualties. Yes, indeed. but they got China behind them. They got drones coming from Iran. You know, and oh, by the way, Ukraine's got a limit on how much countries are willing to give them. They're losing funding from the United States. So it's too late. It's been too late after day one for them to negotiate, but better sooner rather than later, because every day that goes by, just the problem, the death toll just continues to stack. And in what end? It's going to end. And Russia's going to win. I mean, how many lives is this going to take?
Yeah, I mean, it's horrible. What are we at right now with the death toll? A couple 100,000?
We're never going to know. And you know what? Even if Russia doesn't win, Russia still wins. They're still going to win because they're crushing. You know, look at the fighting that's caused in the United States. The $100 billion we've already spent, the billions in Europe, and look, even if Russia doesn't win, as we would say, win, they're still going to win. They're still going to win. Ultimately, there's still you know, hundreds of thousands of Russian-speaking Ukrainians living in the eastern part of that country. None of that's going to change, and you know, Russia is not going to rebuild those cities. So, you know, what's Russia going to do? They're going to sit back and watch countries go in there and invest all their hard-earned capital to rebuild Ukraine. Yeah, I mean, while Russia is selling them the oil out the back door.
And we know that Russia is always a million steps ahead in regards to their next move. We know that China wants Taiwan. What do you think Russia wants next, ultimately? What do you think they're looking for?
Well, I mean, ultimately, look, they wanted Ukraine as a buffer zone. Now, they may not get the Ukraine as a buffer zone. They may not get Ukraine as a non-NATO member forever. I do think that should have been put on the table. They should have backdoor channeled that to Russia. Said, yeah, Ukraine's never going to be in NATO. Sorry. They're corrupt pieces of. They're just not going to happen, and none of this would ever happen. But you know, that's the past. But I think what Putin wants right now is he likes the chaos and he likes the infighting. I mean, this is becoming an issue in the United States, a huge polarizing issue. He knows that. He's playing that to the max. He's watching the Europeans struggle. I mean, he could shut off the gas. He can start selling his oil out the back and make money. So he is just allowing, look, if I can't get Ukraine off the table as NATO and take over those sections I want, the world is in chaos and struggling and fighting over this thing. So he's content, I think. I think he's content with the geopolitical chaos that he's creating over there. And look, he doesn't give a damn about his people either. So if he's losing, you know, thousands of soldiers, he could care less. You know, it's not like he's, you know, bleeding hard over his, you know, dead soldiers that are coming home in a pine box. So I think he's just relishing in the chaos. And I think in the end, ultimately, he's going to get what he wants, which is Ukraine and NATO. I don't see, it's never going to happen under Trump. And quite frankly, I think that NATO has gotten themselves into a very precarious situation where, you know, a strong Republican president like Donald Trump could say, you know what the hell, NATO does us nothing. There's no need for it. You're on your own. We will support you, but this whole NATO treaty is going to get. We're going to renegotiate my contract, and this whole NATO thing we're going to pull out. Why are we spending all this money? It's the responsibility of those countries. But like everything else, you know, everybody just relies on the blank checkbook from the United States, and we're going to bail everybody out. Those days got to come to an end. Can't bail ourselves out.
Speaking of Trump, and he's talking nonsense again because there's no way he has this power because there'll be somebody above him because the president doesn't have this type of authority. They don't have the ultimate power like they think or like other people think. But he's saying today that Trump promises to ban central bank digital currencies. I don't buy it. You just can't. It's more of a worldwide.
Well, he certainly can regulate it. He can do that through regulation.
Yeah, but there's always people above him, you know, the elites, the people that are organizing this that will find a way to. I mean, I just don't think he can put a stop to this. I think him being.
No, I think he can.
One person,
but it's a limited stop. It's stopped for as long as he's president. I know, and that could be something maybe the guy gets assassinated for. All I'm saying is, look, he can do that. Look, the central bank, they work for him. It's part of, that's part of the U.S. government, the Federal Reserve. Even though it's a private enterprise, he can dictate and say, hey, no, we're not going to do it. Now, if he can't do it by legislative act, like, bill going through Congress, he can do it through executive order. He can have a regulation. His banking regulators draw it up saying, no, it's not going to be done. Very easy. But the problem with regulations is they can always be overturned by the next administration, as we saw. I mean, Biden took office and immediately, with a stroke of a pen, got rid of all those executive orders and got his regulators, put them to work doing things that they should never do. I mean, how the hell did you say that? Well, here's a guy that just came in and said, I'm going to forgive $1 trillion to student loans. Yeah, says who? Okay, they fought it in the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said you can't do it, but he's still figuring out ways to keep people from having to pay their loans. And he's forgiven millions of dollars already. So yeah, he can do that. And I frankly believe that Trump should do it, but he should work with a Congress. And that's why it's important that we get the Senate and the House. But would they support a ban on central bank digital currency? They sure as hell should. That is a complete obliteration of individual freedom. A obliteration. You want to see in a millisecond your freedom as an American citizen just evaporate, then get rid of the dollar and replace it with a central bank digital currency. It's gone. It is gone forever. Will never come back. So it's something that needs to be done. And I hope that Trump does do it, even if it is by executive order and regulation, because at least we got 4 years of freedom left. Who knows what happens after that, but at least we got 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Number of firearms in U.S. civilian hands now tops 470 million. So they're, like I've always said, way more guns than there are people in this country.
And you know why I love that figure?
I think there's only, 360 or 70 million people in this country, and there's 470 million.
Yeah, 330, they say. I don't know how many illegals. But you know why I love that statistic? Because I don't just look at that.
It also says 28% more guns made in the U.S. during Biden's first year than Trump's last.
Yeah. And again, the reason why I love it is because what I've pointed out for years, it just seems people just don't kind of grasp this concept, is the very same people that will attack that will show that is a horrible, evil thing of America, that we need to get rid of the guns, are the exact same people that will tell you there's no way you can get rid of 20 million illegal people. Yeah, Trump ain't never going to be. Well, wait a second. 400 million guns. There is a chance in hell that you can get rid of 10% of it. You think 40 million? Right. How about just you think there's a chance of getting rid of steel objects that I can hide in my drywall, bury in the backyard? But no, John, don't even talk about how are you going to round up people? You can't round up people. Well, damn, if you can round up 400 million guns, then why the hell can't you round up 10 million illegals? Give me a friggin' break. It's not about the realities of the situation. It's all about their agenda to fundamentally change. Getting rid of guns is not about public safety. It's not about securing our cities. It is about just complete fundamental transformation of this country and obliterating the Second Amendment altogether so that people can't defend themselves against what our founding fathers knew was the greatest threat to the American liberty was an oppressive, totalitarian, evil dictatorship regime. That's why they gave us the Second Amendment. Not to give us 10 bullets to kill a deer, but to protect us from totalitarianism and to disallow us from being able to protect ourselves. So the government is the only institution that should protect us. I'm sorry. I'm not waiting for the government to protect my home when there's lawlessness in the streets. You know what? I got an AR-15 with 40 rounds, and I got multiple magazines by my side. And oh, by the way, multiple AR-15s and many other guns and lots of bullets. So I'm not going to wait for Joe Biden and his administration to protect me. I'll protect myself. Thank you very much. But again, this is not about making the streets safer, because if it was, and if it was that easy, They would have gotten rid of our guns in the first place. But you know what? Pol Pot, Mao Zedong, Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Benito Mussolini, Fidel Castro, Hugo Chavez, every single one of those tyrants knew that the key to their Marxist revolution, to their dictatorship takeover, was disarming the people. Every single one of the tyrants of the 20th century knew that before they could usher in their revolution, they needed to disarm the people. That's what this country wants to do, the radical leftists, and they want to disarm the people, and the people aren't going to let it happen.
Yeah, all gun control has ever done is leave the good guy defenseless, because criminals don't follow laws. We know that. I want to bring this up. Washington State, where I'm from, Democrats are proposing a bullet tax for privilege of using ammunition. I think this is where the gun control groups really want to take things. I mean, I could see Democrats in Washington, D.C., bringing forth a bill like this. Washington State Democrats are proposing a bullet tax, which they justify as being a tax on the privilege of using ammunition. Fox News reported that the legislation, HB 2238, describes the ammunition tax as a use tax. It would be levied on every person in Washington State for the privilege of using ammunition as a consumer at the rate of 11% of the selling price. The bill defines ammunition as projectiles with their fuses, propelling charges, or primers designed to be fired from firearms. Ammunition includes any shotgun shell and any rifle, pistol, or revolver cartridge.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, look, I've said this for a long time. The Second Amendment has very powerful and well-funded organizations that will defend it, from NRA and many others. So they're not going to go after the get rid of the guns, because they know they're going to get crushed in the Supreme Court. But they can very easily go after the bullets. And of course, that's always been the agenda. You know, it's always systematic. It's brick by brick. Take away, make it harder. First, you make it harder to get guns. Not impossible, but very hard, very difficult. And then you just kind of go after the bullets. And you know what? Obama had a massive influence on bullets, because he made it cost prohibitive to smelt lead in this country. Nobody produces or refines lead in America. The last smelting plant went out of business, I want to say, in 2015, cost prohibitive, because Obama made it that way. And you think about that, so it's like a massive, a huge mineral in bullets. So now we have to import all these bullets, and now you can attack it on that end, stopping the import. So it's all systematic approach toward the ultimate objective, which is to destroy and obliterate the Second Amendment altogether. But it starts with undermining it systematically, and that's what this is about.
Speaking of the Second Amendment, breaking news: Pennsylvania House Democrats advance assault weapons ban and other types of gun control. Did you hear about that? That was a few minutes ago.
Yeah. I mean, look, these things have to go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has to uphold it. It's wrong on many levels. Number one, people don't even understand what an assault weapon is. They can't even describe where that name came from. It's used to kind of create scare and fear. Assault weapon. Why do you need an assault weapon? It's an automatic rifle. It's no different than millions and millions of other rifles out there. It's a semi-automatic. It looks scary. It looks ugly. You know what? If we're going to ban things that are scary and ugly, then I say no tattoos on your face, all right? Because those are scary and ugly to me. Women, men, no tattoos on your face. So, I mean, if it's about being ugly, I mean, let's start there. There are a lot of things we can ban if they're scary. But, the fact is that assault weapons have a very valuable place in society. Ask anybody in the Ukraine right now. And it's, oh, by the way, it's protected in the Second Amendment. It's our right. Right? It's our right. And it's not up to Joe Biden or Andrew Cuomo or any other ass clown to tell me what kind of gun I should own. Well, you can't own a bazooka. You can't own machine guns. Yeah, I can own machine guns. It takes a special license, but yes, I can. Yes, I can. And oh, by the way, there are thousands of gang members in America that do sure as hell own machine guns. Why don't you start? I'll tell you what. Why don't you start with cracking down on illegal immigrants and gangs in cities, and take away all their guns and lock them all up in prison, deport them, and then you can have a discussion with me about my gun.
Right. I agree. I mean, It's do as I say, not as I do. I mean, these people have armed security, they have armed guards, and they are talking about taking people's guns, defunding the police. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it was maybe it was Hank Williams Jr. or Waylon Jennings. One of those country singers said, you know what? You start with the criminal, take the criminal's gun away, and then you come ask me for mine.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come right back and close out. Well, stay with us, everybody. And we are back. So real quick, the FBI has arrested transgender woman plotting violence against Jews, Black people, and allegedly targeting transphobic co-workers with Nazi imagery and stockpile of guns and ammunition. This was earlier today. The FBI has arrested a 56-year-old transgender. Why would the transgender go after other transgenders? And why would it go after Jewish and Black people? Weird.
Well, first of all, if you're a transgender person, you're nuts. Sorry.
True, yeah.
We got mental illness.
Their suicide rate is the highest. They've got more psychological problems than anybody. I mean, think about it.
These people are self-loathing.
You want to change how you were born. I think that's as crazy as it gets. It doesn't get any more delusional.
No, they're crazy, deranged people. And they're also self-loathing. And I mean, listen, these people hate Oregon. They hate Israel. Anyway, there are millions of people that hate Israel just for whatever reason. So why should it be a surprise if some wacky tranny would want to carry out his hate against people? But we don't hear about them. We don't talk about the tranny that killed all those people at the Christian school. They only label that. They don't even talk about that at all. As a matter of fact, they classify her among the trannies that were killed. Terrible thing. These trannies are killed. She's like numbered among how many trannies were killed.
Right.
Over the transgenderism. Look, this is a sick society that we live in. This whole transgender movement is a sick, satanic movement. But hey, you know what? Let's keep taking fantasy and imagination and getting rid of truth and reality.
Crazy stuff. We were talking about the Second Amendment a little bit ago. It says right here, according to a new report, in 2022, Ohio legalized permit-free carry of guns across the entire state. Gun violence in 6 out of the 8 largest Ohio cities dropped significantly after the law. Columbus dropped 12%, Cleveland dropped 6%, Toledo 18%, Akron 18%, Parma 22%, Canton 5%. That's significant. I mean, this goes to show when you give people more freedoms with gun laws and you slash regulations, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. There's a reason why gun-free zones are targets of people who want to create mass casualties. You don't go into places where people are armed and commit acts of violence and criminality. You just don't do it. You look for soft targets always. And that's why it's important that, the people were endowed by God, not government, to be able to protect themselves and their families. And, that's why the Second Amendment is so important, and on so many levels, it must be protected.
Right. Absolutely. Mark, any final thoughts tonight?
Well, I wanted to hit on the government and the Houthis. I mean, because this is my prediction. The Houthis are doing things. The White House refuses to call this organization. They lifted the terrorist classification anyway when they came in. Why, I don't know. This is a pure and simple, the very definition of terrorist organization. The White House says that they're going to give them if 30 days. They got 30 days to cease aggressions in the Red Sea. They call it a specially designated global terrorist group, SGDT. So they're going to give them that terrorists in 30 days, or that's what they're classified, unless they cease their aggressions in the Red Sea. So in other words, it's really pathetic. But here's what it's going to allow them to do. And you watch, mark my words, because you're talking about all of those ships. Now we're cutting all the vessels, the U.S. vessels. They're all going, having to take the long way around and go through around Africa, the Horn of Africa to bring them. So all of the shipping costs are going to skyrocket. They already have. I think I saw one number that's up 120%. So guess what the new excuse for inflation is? Guess what the new excuse is? It's not $4 trillion more than we took. Nah. It's not government crazy overspending. It's not massive debt. It's the Houthi. It's the shipping crisis. I mean, all this crap, that's the prices of gas was Ukraine. This administration always looking for the lie. The next lie, because look, inflation's up. It was 3.2% last month, 3.4%, 3.1%, 3.4% this month. Looking back at last year, it's going to continue to tick up. And now you throw in the price increases as a result. The excuse is not going to be massive government spending. It's going to be, the shipping, the Houthis. And, to which I'm going to say, well, then what are you doing about it? How come you haven't crushed Iran? Iran is sponsoring these people, is arming them. It's the Biden's next excuse why we're paying more for everything. But the fact is, inflation is here to stay. It's going to go up. Thank you, federal government, for massive overspending. Thank you, Jerome Powell and the clowns, for facilitating it.
What a time. What a time, my friend. What a time. Is that it?
That's it. Yeah, I mean, we'll be talking about the same kind of things tomorrow and the next day and the day after. I don't know. Things are going to change. Look, I like Speaker Johnson, but as I said from the beginning, get rid of McCarthy, and nobody's going to be any different. Right. Nobody's going to be any different, right? Because you people aren't willing to shut the government down. The grossly incompetent government that's destroying our way of life. You refuse to shut this organization down. So instead, you'll let millions cross the border. You'll send billions to Ukraine, and you'll make your nasty behind backdoor deals at the expense of the American taxpayer. And, it'd be business as usual.
Sad but true. Another episode. Yeah, no, absolutely. Another episode in the books, Daily S&M. We want to thank you all for tuning in. We will see you all very soon. Until next time, I'm Rory Sauter. Greg Merck. God bless. Much love. Cheers, everybody. Good night.